through space with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE and welcome back to the channel that stabs stupidity in the eye of a knitting needle and just gives it a good old wiggle. My wife told me to do that one. So welcome back. We're going to have another debate tonight, a flat earth slash concave earth type thing. But before we get going, just how you guys doing in this crazy ass time? I've been a little bit sick myself. I've had an incredibly bad headache that's lasted a couple of weeks and is literally knocked me for 6, but I'm feeling much better now and I'm going to get my ass moving and get some videos and stuff out. I know Team Skeptic is pretty sick. I don't even know if he'll be about in the chat tonight. If he is, make sure you say hi to him because he's been pretty poorly. But I know there's hundreds of thousands, actually millions of people around the world ill with coronavirus, and I just hope everyone is safe and looking after yourselves in the lockdown. So anyway, I've got hopefully 2 guys on tonight. We've got IGOTQUESTIONS and we've got Josh, Zenith Atlas, who, and Zenith Atlas is definitely a concave earther, but IGOTQUESTIONS is mainly a concave earther, but says he has some credence in the flat earth side of things. But why don't we just go over to them and say hello, see how they're getting on. IGOTQUESTIONS, how you doing?
Hello, Craig. Hi, everyone. First of all, apologies for my English, for my low level of English, and thank you very much for this space.
No
I'm
worries.
here to present and explain the basically the concave Earth model.
So you say concave Earth, but you say you give some credence to part of the flat Earth. Do you want to explain what you mean by that?
Right. So I'm not stating that I'm knowing something. I just have beliefs, and I give some percentage of credit to every model. Let's say I give a 80% to the concave Earth and a 10% at a flat Earth, and 10% to the official model, the convex spinning ball.
Okay. So you don't think there's any chance at all that we are on a rotating oblate spheroid in space?
No, I give 10% to a convex model, but on this convex model, let's say I give only 1% to a flying spinning ball and 9% to a Ptolemaic model that the Earth is stationary and everything else is spinning
So
around us.
you think if there is a chance that it's a sphere, the geostationary, not geostationary, sorry, I've forgotten the actual word that I'm talking about here.
Yeah, the convex. If there is a chance that we are standing outside of a ball, I think I give 9% that we are standing on a stationary Earth,
Right. So
and
yeah.
the
So
sky and the sun, everything.
geocentric. That's the
It's
word I was trying to think of. So yeah, you think
yeah.
if the Earth is a sphere, then it's geocentric, and we're the center, and everything orbits around us.
Yeah, from
Right.
my 10% that I give to the
Is there
convex ball.
any percentage chance that the Earth is actually a cat?
Sorry, is the Earth is
A cat.
what?
You know, meow.
A cat?
Yeah.
No,
No.
no.
Oh, I mean that would be good. I prefer that. But anyway, we've also got Josh Zenith Atlas with us. Hello, Josh. You there? Oh, can't hear you, buddy. You've got your mic muted? No. No, not getting any audio from you.
No.
I can see you there. Try refreshing your connection and make sure your mic's on. He is there. We'll put him up on the screen because he's actually presenting video, but we just can't hear him. You know, technology and all that. We'll put him up there. Hey, Josh, yeah, can you hear us? No, we still can't hear you. Yeah, no, we can't hear you though. You can hear us, but we can't hear you, and I've definitely got you pumping through. You make sure you got it selected to use the right microphone. Try unplugging your headset. No. Okay, all right. Well, you try and get that sorted, and we'll carry on the conversation without you for now. If you get that sorted, you can just pipe in and tell us that you're here. Right. So we were. I'll put your picture back up. Let me just go to that. Okay. So we were talking briefly before we went live, and I was talking about evidence, right? Because I have evidence. I have lots and lots and lots of evidence that the Earth is a sphere, that it does rotate, and we are moving through space. And you said that you don't really have any evidence that it's concave or flat, right? Is that right?
Yeah, this is correct. What I got is clues.
Right, and you don't see the fact of not having any evidence as an issue.
No, because I'm free to believe what I want to believe,
Oh yeah,
and
sure. Belief is one thing, but it's about actual evidence. And like I said, when I have so much evidence, physical measurements, scientific theories, experiments, observations, there's so much that I've got to actually back up what I say with everything that all fits together, and you don't have any of that. And does it not make you think, well, why do I believe this?
yeah, well, you're free to believe what you want to believe. So, in my opinion, it's more probable to be inside of a hollow Earth, which is the concave model, than standing on outside of a spinning flame ball. That's my opinion.
Okay, opinions are cool, but science doesn't really deal in opinions.
Right,
We deal with facts and measurements. And what issues do you have
right,
with all the evidence? For instance, I could say to you, I've got tons of physical measurements of the shape of the Earth, and they all say the same thing. They're all independent of each other. Massive surveying operations across the whole world. I can show you all the pages from it. Let me just get it up. Handily put together by MC Toon, fellow debater of nonsense. Make sure you guys are subscribed to MC Toon and you check out his website, mctoon.net, where he has gathered all the information that we need for things like this. So if we look here, we've got everything going back from 1830 all the way up to more modern times. The transcontinental triangulation of the American arc of the parallel. And then you've got measurements of India and the account of the measurement of two sections of the original arc of India between the parallels 18 degrees 3 and 29 degrees 30. And they all match up. They all say the same thing, that we have a radius of about 4,000 miles. And
Can you hear me now?
yes, Hello, Josh. We can hear
Yeah.
you.
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
How you doing? Oh, you there? You were there. You've gone quiet now.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. There we go.
How you doing, Josh? Welcome.
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for
Not
having me.
bad. You safe in this mad, crazy apocalypse we're having?
Yeah, I'm staying safe,
Good. Oh
getting
man.
lots of rest. We're not allowed to work anymore.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
guess it's
there's
too
not much
dangerous.
else you could do. I mean, I've got two kids, so I don't know so much about rest, but yeah, we're at home all the time, and so are they all the time.
Yeah, that must
But
be pretty stressful for everybody.
I mean, it's all right, you know. But parents need a break as well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, as long as you're safe. Yeah, and do you want to briefly just introduce yourself, tell everyone what your deal is, and what you think about the shape of the Earth?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Joshua James Bolliero, and I was a flat earther for a couple of years myself, and I say flat earther because that's kind of the term for when you start researching, Earth. You know, according to the conspiracy theory world on the internet. So, so there's that label. It really started with the stationary Earth journey, and then it just obviously right away there's going to be a map and stars problem, and the longer the more I probed for answers into the flat Earth community, it became more and more clear that not only did they not have answers, but they were specifically hiding things and stuff like that. So I don't, obviously I'm not a flat earther anymore, but I do think that there are some legitimate claims made by the flat Earth community that don't have to do with the flatness of Earth, but this with just natural observations, things we observe, things we may have taken for granted, and maybe not. So I lean heavily more towards convex or concave. Um, I think the maps work better and the stars work better. The gravitational forces, there's obviously a center of gravity, whether it's perfectly spherical or not. We just need to determine is it above us or below us. But obviously, the flat thing, just doesn't. I mean, the seasons, the sun pass. I could go on and on. The lunar eclipse. It all falls apart once you actually, you know. And I don't believe NASA's telling the truth about the moon landing, but that doesn't make the Earth flat. That's just
Right.
hocus pocus. Um, and just because what they show us of the moon landing doesn't look real to me, they may have done things that they haven't shown the public. So there's still the possibility that NASA is doing things up in the sky. In fact, I know they're still doing things up in the sky. But I'm just saying they may have done things outside of our knowledge, and then just show us the fake stuff just to make us think, oh, NASA's full of shit. They're not doing anything up there. No, they are. They are. They're doing stuff up there. You guys are wrong.
Yeah,
Right.
about you were saying, Josh. I think these days that they have confined all of us in homes. I think they are doing something on the sky because there was a lot of recordings around the world of noise from the skies, and some lights on the sky. So I think that they are doing something to the dome. I think they are
They're doing
polishing the
something
dome.
to the dome.
Yeah,
Right. So if there's a dome, and if the Earth's concave, it goes around the entire Earth, right?
yeah. The
Um,
the 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 dome on the concave model is a sphere. So
right.
the
Cool.
Earth is a sphere, and
Where?
the first there are several glass spheres.
eh,
The first one we got it on 100 kilometers up.
Right. Uh, have you got a picture or anything of the concept you're trying to say that I could put up for everyone? Because
Yeah.
my first, if you could email me a picture, but my first question is, where'd the dome come from?
Well, it's not a dome. It's in the concave model. We call it dome, just to people understand it, but it's a sphere. But for us, it's like a flat surface, which is at 100 kilometers up. We think it's glass. It's glass
It's
with maybe
right.
yeah with maybe ice attached above it.
Where did it come from?
Now it's made it. The concave Earth model, it's artificial. It's made by something. We are living in a
Yeah,
scenery
okay.
like,
Made by what or who and how?
well, by God.
Oh, that's a bit of a cop out answer, to be fair. Like, because let's assume that there is a glass dome of that magnitude around the entire Earth. You need to start talking about things like structural mechanics, and a glass dome of that large enough, would collapse under its own weight. It couldn't exist unless
No,
you're flat out claiming magic. You know,
no, no,
yeah,
because because in a concave Earth model, uh, maybe the gravity it's going lower as you climb up. So when you get 90 kilometers, there is no gravity. Maybe at 100 kilometers,
when you get how high? Sorry,
at 100 kilometers, maybe the gravity doesn't exist anymore.
but it does. I mean,
Well, that
let's
you
look at
say
the,
it
the,
does.
the ISS, for instance, which is what, 240 miles up, something like that. They still have gravity. It's about 80% of what we experience here. They still have gravity. The only reason they float around up there is because the ISS is in free fall towards the Earth.
Okay, so um, um, I can explain to you what is my point of view about what's happening over there. So you say no, you're wrong. Well, I could be wrong, but I can still keep going, explaining more, right? So
If you go on explaining more and it's all built on a faulty premise, then your conclusions that you
well,
gain from that are,
doesn't
are
matter.
also
You can,
going to be wrong, aren't they?
doesn't matter. You can take it like a science fiction uh,
Well, let's
movie
let's
or
that's the
science
way that
fiction.
I take flat Earth and concave Earth and stuff. Honestly, is science fiction. My first ever introduction to the flat Earth was reading Terry Pratchett's amazing Discworld series, or I think 36 books. So I love
Okay,
the idea of flat Earth as science fiction,
but
but
so
Hey,
it's
Craig,
Greg,
I have a
yeah, Josh,
let me
can I
Greg. One question for Greg, please.
yeah,
Do you like science fiction
of
movies?
course I do.
All right.
I'm watching through the Star Wars series at the moment. I've just got Disney Plus, and I watched. Started with the Phantom Menace, which is an underrated movie in my opinion. It's not a great Star Trek movie by any opinion, but it's a good movie. Little Anakin winning the race, and then you got Attack of the Clones, which is not bad. It's a bit of a build up, and then I think Revenge of the Sith, the episode 3, is a great one. But then if you watch it in order now, you then got to watch the Han Solo movie and then the Rogue Squadron movie before you go on to episode 4. And I've just finished episode 4. But yeah, sorry, you were saying?
Yeah. So I'm gonna mute myself. Go on, Josh. Thank you for answer, Greg.
Yeah, Josh, how you doing? What are you saying, bud?
cool. Well, what I wanted to say was in regards to the the dome or the firmament or the glass up there. While I don't think that it's exactly the same exact type of glass that we make down here, um, I don't think it's out of the stretch of possibility for there to be, an onion layer type scenario where we live in just one of the thin onion layers. Since we do have a pressure gradient, um, and so while I
Yeah,
do,
but wait,
well,
a pressure
well, I will
gradient
say that
a pressure gradient isn't separated by layers of glass. the pressure gradient exists within our atmosphere. There's a delta to the pressure as you raise in altitude. That's what we mean by gradient. That's why, you know, there's not layers of glass keeping each individual layer of pressure there. I mean,
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that each layer has a different amount of pressure. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, since, you know, a pressure gradient would make sense, since we do live in, you know, in a world where there's a barrier beneath us and a barrier above us. That's all I wanted to make a point about that. I did have a question for you though.
Okay.
As far as like what you said about flat and concave being science fiction. I'll give you that on the flat, because with no maps, no stars, no. I mean, there should be a lot of maps from history if flat Earth had.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's the same with concave. There isn't anything that matches.
But there is, though. I've got a link of 700 concave. There's so many.
Yeah, but it only matches if you invert a bunch of maths and change reality to fit the observations that you see.
No. But here's the point I'm trying to make. What I'm trying to do, all right, I'll start over by saying flat earthers say people knew the Earth was flat for thousands of years until this Copernican spinning ball deception came around 500 years ago. Okay?
You forgot to say satanic.
I know it. Luciferian gatekeepers.
Yeah.
So.
Hail Satan.
Vegan witch tools. So. So when I came across this multitude of concave Earth maps, I'm like, hey, flat Earth land, you guys said everyone knew the Earth was flat, but there's no flat Earth maps from history. They're all paintings. Look, you know, they're all freaking paintings. And so I said, well, where are these functions? I mean, the Gleason, the AE, those aren't functioning maps. They're time calculated. They're unwrapped. You can't. They needed a way to put a spherical Earth on a flat piece of paper, and so you have the AE Gleason.
Yeah, it's called projection.
And so, right, and so that's why I say that concave and convex are closer to reality than theory, because flat earthers don't even have a damn map. And whether the Earth is convex or concave, you can map the Earth spherically, convex or concave. So my question is, you know, maybe once you see them, you'll have a different perspective when you hear this question asked to you.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm going to ask it now, but
go ahead.
Maybe if you haven't seen maps, once you look at them, ask yourself again, why are there so many Earth maps from history, before the internet, before
why is there so many what? Sorry.
Before all this internet disinformation and fake news, before all of that, there are hundreds and hundreds of concave Earth maps from history. We've seen them all before. They're like, you know, the two circles like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's been crazy people throughout history the whole time.
Yeah, circles like that, and you can see, well, because of the longitudinal divergence versus convergence is one thing to take note of between convex and concave. Yes, the curvature would still be the same.
I've got actual evidence that plumb bobs do in fact, you know, go the way that we expect, and I've got actual measurements. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So basically what I'm asking, all I'm saying is, I'm not saying that proves concave Earth. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, if the Earth truly is convex, that must mean there should be a reason to explain why all these Spanish and Portuguese explorers got it wrong. Because there's hundreds and hundreds of concave. I mean, there's a lot of people from history. There must be with all these concave Earth maps. There's a lot of people from history that
people in the past were thick.
Or whatever, it's hypothetical or not, they have all these concave Earth maps, and if they were wrong, if the Earth really is convex, which might be possible, right? So there must be a way to how did they get it wrong? Why did they think it was convex? That's what I want to get at. I want a way. The Earth might be convex, but I need a way to explain why all these concave Earth maps.
Because they got it wrong, basically. All we need to do, it's very simple. It really is. The entire argument. I've got to give a lot of credit to MC Toon lately, because the way that he just gets the facts of Well, here's actual measurements. Everything you are saying is a lovely hypothesis, but
So you're
what
talking
about actual
spherical axis.
measurements? And if you want measurements of the shape of the Earth, there is absolutely tons of them. There's so many, and Jesse Kozlowski has even measured, the divergence of plumb bobs as you would expect on a sphere, and the drop that you would expect. And he's a licensed surveyor using surveying tools, and whenever there is actual measurements done, all of the measurements show that we are on a sphere of a radius of around 4,000 miles. Why is it that all of the measurements that are actually done by surveyors, so many of them, why do they all show that the radius of Earth is of a convex Earth is about 4,000 miles?
Well, that's what I want to get into, because that's something Flat Earth wants to avoid. And I want to tackle things like these surveying measurements. Because if the Earth, on the other side of the coin, if the Earth really is concave, then there must be a reason why Jesse Kozlowski has to be wrong. And I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but what I'm seeing is an honest person will say, okay, we've got evidences here. A lot of modern evidence suggests convex. A lot of ancient evidence suggests concave. The space agencies that are promoting the convex are really giving us lots of fraudulent stuff, regardless of what they really are or aren't doing. A lot of this stuff looks fake. I've got great footage of water that really does appear to be concave, but we also have measurements outside of surveying equipment, because I understand that a horizon doesn't necessarily mean that's where the Earth is dropping.
Yeah.
I know that a horizon is subject to change within an hour from the same spot, or even, a horizon is
let me
based
stop
on
you there for one sec, because all of the observations
But the
that you
spherical
show,
axis is the problem.
all the observations that you show are from a couple of inches above water, right? That's when you get the concave videos. Yeah?
The reason I do it from that altitude, and I understand the arguments for going up, because people will say, well, that's where refraction is highest, and that's where you're going to get the most distort. I understand that. But the reason I did that was actually to refute Flat Earth, and I'll explain why. Is because Flat Earth always, okay, I got a little table right here, so I'll turn this camera. Okay, let me line this right up, just so that we get some, just line it up like this. So you got a flat table here, right? So a Flat Earther will say, well, the reason you're able to see the opposite shoreline over a boat, like let's say you got a boat this tall, right? Where's the camera? All right, so you got a boat over here. Okay, now if we've got a shoreline over here, right, over here yonder somewhere, and then we've got a viewer over here. Now this viewer is going to look over the boat and see the shoreline. And he's going to say, well, from this distance, I shouldn't be able to see that opposite shoreline, blah, 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 blah. And the Flat Earther will always be able to say, oh, well, that's just perspective over a flat plane, right? They're always going to be able to use that argument. And I think it's a terrible argument, because they show you the hallway.
Flat Earthers are dumb as fuck.
Right, because the hallway, the camera height in the hallway is almost equidistant from the ceiling to the floor, meaning it's about, it's a little higher than halfway between the ceiling and the floor. So you're going to get a point of convergence that appears symmetrical, and so they not only left to right but top to bottom, symmetry. And so, wow, I just got a notification for one of my own uploads from 3 days ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, win YouTube.
Yeah, thanks YouTube. So what I did was I made sure that my camera height was so low that I'm proving that I have to look upwards.
Right,
over a boat.
But the problem is that as soon as you do that, you exponentially increase the lapse rate the closer you get to the water. And that's the important thing with refraction, right? Is the lapse rate, and that's the change in temperature over distance, right? And when you are that close to the water and you get temperature inversions and all sorts, you can easily have it with a positive coefficient of refraction looking like the Earth is concave. And that isn't an issue on our model. And that's the main point about all of these observations is no matter what you think you see, they are all explained on the heliocentric model with no issues.
And that's fine. And I accept that the convex Earth has a way to explain that. And so I don't have to like reject it and say that's there. There's always going to be more than one way to explain an observation. And so I'm willing to accept your explanation for my observation. But I just want to make the point that we are seeing what looks like concavity. If it's not really concavity, okay, so be it. But I can show, you know, concavity. It could be that the Earth really is, you know, I assert that, you know,
right.
maybe we all have the science wrong about how light is bending and the coefficient of refraction.
I mean, we don't. Most computers are kind of based on knowledge of light and speed of light and everything like that. We literally couldn't be having this conversation if we didn't understand how light works. I mean, most internet traffic is now down fiber optic cables, and all that stuff wouldn't work without our knowledge of light and the way that it works. We know what light is and how it works. There isn't any problems with that.
I strongly disagree, simply because of what I know about. I'm not even going to get it. Even aside from the arguments about, you know, zooming over water. Aside from that, you know, I don't believe we have a 93 million mile away sun. You know,
belief is irrelevant. I can show you facts that demonstrate it to be true.
I don't think we're taught the truth about light at all. So
what do you have to say that? What do you have to say that what we've been taught about light is wrong? What can you present that would convince somebody else that our knowledge of light is incorrect?
All right, I'll give one example, and if you want another one, then I'll give another.
Okay.
Example number one is we're told that the sun is 93 million miles away.
Yeah.
And we have balloon footage. Now, I'm going to make, all right, point 1A and B. Point 1A is we have balloon footage from, let's say, I don't know, 20-mile altitude, right? And we've got a sun that looks like it's right there with the camera leaving a hot spot. Now, B, we've got footage from the ground zooming into the clouds, and we can see the sun, and it's literally glowing the clouds. You can see the sun is appearing literally in the clouds.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But it's just appearing. I know.
Both of those things are quite ridiculous. What
I'm saying is, the sun is appearing close to every surface. I don't think we're actually seeing the actual position. In fact, I know we're not.
Well, we don't. We see the apparent position of the sun because of refraction, but
appearing, you can see half the sun submerged into water, and we could see more water beyond the setting of the sun. And so that proves that the sun we're seeing is not actually there. It's a manifestation of an actual sun that does exist somewhere. But because light is bending, and because
we usually see the light above we usually see the sun above the position it actually is because of the way that, you know,
the light, it looks like it's setting into the water.
But here's the thing: we've got evidence of the distance of the sun. Observations through refraction and stuff are completely irrelevant because we've got a lot of other things that demonstrate the distance to the sun. You know, spectroscopy alone can tell us how far certain wavelengths have traveled, and we can use simple observations like the passage of the shadow on Mercury, and triangulate your distance because of what you're seeing when Mercury comes into view across the sun. And there's the Parker Solar Probe that we literally had to program to go there, and is about 3 million miles from the surface of the sun at the moment. And there's so much more that demonstrates the sun is the distance that we're told. And there's literally no evidence apart from look at this observation that's a bit funny and looks like the sun's in the clouds. There's nothing to show that the Earth is closer than that the sun is closer than we're told.
Well, I guess we'll just agree to disagree. I don't think there's any. There's never been any. I will actually concede that there's been more hands-on measurement of Earth than there have been. I mean, NASA's never claimed to even traverse through the sun. So without even traveling there, I mean, there's no proof that any of those equations or theories or conjectures are actually accurate because they haven't
look,
been
the Parker Solar Probe is the closest thing that we've ever made to the sun at the moment. Literally designed to go to the sun and study it. And there's another one that's launching, I think, this year or next year. So it's cool. We've done that. We've been there. We've measured it. We know the distance.
How does he even get past the Van Allen belt?
The Van Allen belts aren't an issue. They're not like a physical barrier that stops things working. They're an area of energetic particles charged by solar rays captured in Earth's magnetic field. Now, interestingly, after initial nuclear tests in the atmosphere, it actually increased the strength of the Van Allen belts, which posed an extra problem for NASA when they wanted to go through them originally, because they had to wait for it to dissipate from the extra radiation that was put there from the nuclear test. They had to wait for that to dissipate before they could send the astronauts to the moon.
How long did they have to wait?
Oh, quite a while.
How long did they have to...
I don't have the exact numbers, but it's actually an interesting fact that it was even more dangerous beforehand. But even at the levels that they went through, right? Here's the thing. The levels that they went through, the astronauts got about 4 REMs, right, for the entire journey, which is what somebody that worked full-time at a nuclear plant would get over an entire year. That's how much the radiation was an issue. Most of the radiation could be stopped with a piece of paper. Picture that my daughter's drawn. But most of the radiation within the Van Allen belts, apart from the stronger particles, but most of the radiation could be stopped with a piece of paper. It isn't an issue. It became more of an issue for digital technology because of the ways that certain things worked. And we had to figure out how to get around that with more advanced technology, but now we have. The Van Allen belts aren't this big monster that's going to eat you up and fry you if you go into them. They are simply a periodically shifting area of charged particles.
Well, we've got modern day testimony that where a NASA employee says they...
No, you don't. You don't have what you think at all.
I've seen the guys.
Yeah, we've all seen that. We've all seen that footage, but it isn't what you think. You all misquote and misuse it. The Van Allen belts are an issue for more modern equipment. We don't have the old equipment that we used because that doesn't suit the purposes that we want now. We have newer equipment, and we had to figure out how to make that new equipment safe for both the equipment and the people. But
then you do need old equipment because you
no, you don't understand. We have new equipment because we have better, more advanced equipment, and we have different reasons for going to the moon this time, okay? When they went to the moon in the 60s, what was the reason they went to the moon? To kick around a few balls and get some soil samples.
They needed a way. No one had ever...
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about what conspiracy theorists think. I'm talking about...
I'm not either. The fact that no one had ever thought of the Earth as a ball.
Yeah, so
that's not a conspiracy.
Why did NASA go there? The reason NASA went there was because the American government told them to, and because it allowed us to test our limits in spaceflight, and it allowed us to gain samples of the material on the moon, and it allowed us to do experiments around existing in a lower gravity situation, right? But now, when we go back to the moon, the reason we're going back to the moon now is to create a permanent manned base. So there is different reasons for going to the moon. What?
Right?
Sorry?
Either way, you're going to get through the Van Allen radiation.
Yeah, and the Van Allen belts aren't a problem. We know when they are at their strongest, and we know exactly where they exist. And B, we have now developed enough technology and shielding that our knowledge allows us to get through them without it being an issue. The recent videos that you guys talk about are from about 8-9 years ago. They're not even recent.
Yeah, well, that's I'm comparing. I'm saying recent compared to the moon.
Yeah, technology has moved on. In fact, I'd say that's even a decade old.
Well, yeah, I've been seeing these stupid eclipse and flat earthers for 6 years now. So
have you looked into the technology in the Artemis missions?
No, not specifically.
Why not? If you think it's such a big problem, why have you not looked at the specific technology designed to take people back to the moon?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, cool.
Well, that's a question. I haven't. Because one guy can't research everything specifically, so I haven't researched that.
I know, but it's kind of a big thing
But don't you think it's kind of suspicious that NASA keeps claiming they're going to go to the moon, but they never actually do?
No, because they haven't claimed they're going to go to the moon in recent times. The only time they claimed they're going to go to the moon was talking about the Artemis mission, where they have an initial estimate of 2024, but due to recent events, that's probably going to be delayed a little bit. But the only time they've said they're going to go back to the moon is in the recent few years. So no, it's nothing suspicious about it at all. They've been doing a lot of work in low Earth orbit to test humans' abilities in space. But anyway, I got questions. You said you've looked into Artemis.
Yeah, I've seen the presentation of the suite of Jim Bridgestein, or whatever he's calling, the president of the NASA. And it was a girl wearing the suit. And the news on the suit was the articulations, the arms and the foot has free, and the shoulders have articulation, so you can spin around the. Right. So my question is, how did stay the pressure inside if the articulation can spin 360 degrees?
Wait, so your issue is how can they maintain a pressure inside the suit if it's articulated?
Right, but it's not a regular articulation, so it can spin all the way. I mean, 360 degrees.
Yeah.
It's like a wheelbarrow or something.
And do you not think that maybe there's a bit inside of the bits that are moving that are pressurized separately? Again, do you not think these are things that they would have thought about? Do you think they're going to present a spacesuit to the world that has issues with it? No, it doesn't. Have you actually looked into how it does that? Do you know what their explanation for the pressure is? Or are you just spouting questions with nothing behind it?
No, it has to be... The suit, it must be entirely pressurized. It cannot be pressurized.
That's a claim you've just made. Can you back that up? That the suit must be entirely pressurized. Do you have the working schematics of the suit and understand how it actually works with the design they have?
Well, if a person is inside the suit, like this girl, I don't remember his name, but whatever, if somebody is inside the suit, it's impossible the suit being pressurized by sections.
Can you tell me why it's impossible and provide me with schematics of that? Like, why? I'm just going to get the picture up because I know exactly what you're talking about. And you're just looking at it and going, well, I don't understand how that works. Not understanding how something works doesn't really matter. All right, this is what you're talking about, right?
Well, it does matter because the old suit was weighing about 120 kilos. So this girl, it's impossible to
How
wear
much does this
it.
one weigh?
Much less. I think it's about.
Yeah, because new materials are better than better than old materials.
Yeah, my question: How is this possible with all these articulations? Because it must be some metal involved. So you just look on the middle section there is a metal ring or something. So how can this be? I mean, it's more metal, more articulations, and weight less.
Maybe there's an area inside that metal that has pressure behind it. Maybe there's airtight seals with articulation, which there's plenty of things that have those. Again, you're literally just going, I don't understand how the suit works, therefore NASA are fake.
Yeah, I think this suit it's fake. I mean,
well, okay, you think it's fake. Do you have anything to back that up? I'm gonna have to really start demanding evidence from people because you're just saying the suit looks like it couldn't work.
Craig, look about the girl's shoulders.
Yeah.
So the shoulder, I mean the hands can spin um,
Okay.
all
Right.
around, right? So
There's someone that wants to come and talk about this specifically. Do you mind if I bring them in?
now go ahead.
Okay. 2 secs, Reg. Just sending you an invite. All right, carry on. Will I just get this invite for Rhetoric?
All right. So the old model of suit doesn't have any articulation, metal articulation, and weighted 120 kilos. So this one weighed about the half. And my basic question is, how is the pressure contained in the suit with so many ring articulations? It must.
I mean, I
Yes.
imagine. I mean, I've worked on a lot of pressurized systems, and you can have parts that are articulated whilst maintaining a pressure, like ball bearing joints and stuff. And just before we carry on, welcome to the channel. The face that can kill 1,000 people way quicker than COVID-19. Red's Rhetoric, how you doing?
Oh boy, this is fun.
Yeah.
This is like day, I don't know, 15 of quarantine? I don't know, the days are starting to blend together now.
I mean, I know that Florida tends to smell anyway. Is it really bad inside at the moment?
Oh, dude. I gotta tell you. Actually, I'm not gonna tell you. You'll be demonetized.
Welcome to the channel. We've got with us IGOTQUESTIONS and Zenith Atlas, who currently have issues with NASA. And one of the things they have contentions with is the new Artemis spacesuit, which has articulation points, which, according to IGOTQUESTIONS, is impossible to maintain pressurized whilst having those articulated points. Is that right? IGOTQUESTIONS? I don't want to get your position wrong.
Yeah, well, I see very difficult to maintain the pressure with so particular ring articulation, which is spinning all around.
You mean the same mechanism that is used on modern spacesuits, which have also proven their ability to hold pressure underwater, thus proving that it's airtight? You mean those articulating joints?
Yeah, you got here on the shoulders, you got two of them. On the middle side, I don't know, the belly, you got two articulations, big one, the big metal part. And you got on the foot, you got another two articulation more. So I think that the foot got on the knees, they got another two articulations. So there are too many ring articulations. And how does it work? I mean, they got some rubber inside.
Here's the thing that you're not understanding. I don't have to know how it works to know that it does work, because they demonstrated this type of mechanism working. In the neutral buoyancy laboratory, there is literally water all around them. You see these spacesuits working with these articulation points without letting any water in and without letting any air out. These astronauts are able to breathe within these suits with these articulation points. I don't know exactly how it works. Otherwise, I'd probably be making a lot of money right now. But I do know that they do work because they've already demonstrated these joints working. So what's the problem here?
Well, because you say you don't need to understand how does it work, but I do. I don't believe until I don't get it. I mean.
You don't have to understand exactly how something works if it's already been demonstrated to work. I don't know every component that makes an airplane fly. Does that mean, therefore, that all airplanes are part of some big, gigantic conspiracy promoting anti-gravity? I don't know how photosynthesis works completely. Does that mean every plant is part of the conspiracy? I don't know how the internals of my computer work. Does that mean I'm not on the internet right now talking to you through my computer?
Oh, I
Just
God!
because you
I
don't
hope you're not just the voice in my head, Reds. I really hope that's not the case.
I recommend therapy if that is indeed the case. But the fact remains is that just because you don't understand how something works doesn't mean that we don't have knowledge that it does in fact work. They have demonstrated this joint mechanism working.
Okay. Do you got any video with this Artemis suit underwater?
Not with the Artemis suit underwater. I do have video, however, of these roto joints. Let's just call them roto joints. I don't know if that's the actual name of it, but
Yep.
I do have video of these roto joints actually working underwater and in space. Now, of course, you're not going to accept footage from the ISS, so I can show you footage from the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory of these roto joints not letting any water in and not letting any air out, thus confirming it is airtight.
You could send me a link to those and I could pop it up on the screen.
Okay, but a joint, I mean, can be faked. I want to see this girl with this
How?
underwater. I want to see how she's moving the hand. She's got in each arm she's got 2 ring joints. So I want to see her how it's moving the hand.
Wait. How can a roto joint be faked? You're in a pool full of water and water is all around you. If there was a leak anywhere, you would see it leaking in or you would see air leaking out. So how can that be faked? If I'm going to show you footage, I'm going to want you to actually accept it and not just dismiss it as fake or CGI.
Okay, I don't know, but just share the footage. Let's see it. Let's take a look.
All right, well, Craig has some footage of it already.
Like Red's saying, this isn't Artemis underwater. This is a more recent spacesuit that they use, the UAV suit on the ISS, but it also has those same kind of roto joints that the Artemis suit has. That's how they have the articulation in their shoulder joints and hip joints and stuff. So those rotor joints are already a proven technology. You can see them here inside. Let me go back to that bit there.
I'm going to send you a video, Craig, right now. Let me paste this here, and it's just been sent to you.
Groovy, just getting that now.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
And what I would like for
you,
what I would like for you to do is fast forward to 1 minute and 5 seconds. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to exactly 1 minute. Exactly 1 minute. Let's go a little bit before that because I don't want to miss anything. Okay, and pause it right there. Okay, you see that line around? That's them connecting that joint. Now look at the rings that are around the dude's wrists. Look at those rings. That's part of the roto joint. Can you play a little bit more, please? And what he does is that he also tests the ability to move within this suit. So those are the joints again. Now wait for him to put on his gloves, and then you'll see him move his arms or his hands all over the fucking place. Right there, see? You see how he's actually able to turn his wrists? That's because of those roto joints. See that? He's actually able to turn his wrists because of those roto joints. And this is the same suit that they use inside the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, where they do training. So these types of joints have been used before with no problem whatsoever. And here is a video of him with a suit utilizing these joints in the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, showing that it is air and water tight. So what exactly is the issue here?
Well, I don't know. How do we know the pressure inside the suit?
Because they're breathing. There's obviously some pressure there. If the water pressure was higher than the suit, then water would be leaking in. If the air pressure is more than the water surrounding it, then air would be leaking out. Because there's no leaks, that means it doesn't matter what pressure they're working with. There are no leaks. Otherwise, air would be leaking out or water would be leaking in. And because the dude is not drowning currently, we know that it is air and water tight.
All right. So, do you know how much weighs a suit, an Artemis suit?
I have no idea. What does that have to do with a roto joint?
Well, because you know the old model was about 120 kilos.
Okay, what's your point?
Well, the new model, the Artemis model, must be lighter because they can wear it and they can walk. The old model was impossible to walk in. There is no footage with a astronaut walking on the Earth with the old model. So if they can walk,
the fact remains is that the Artemis program is about going to the moon. The moon's gravity is only 1/6 that of Earth. So if you're talking about, like, let's say we have a suit that weighs 100 kilos, okay? You would divide that by 6, which means you would only be looking at 16 kilos of weight.
yeah, I'm not talking about the moon. I'm talking about the Earth because we got footage with the new model, the Artemis model, with astronauts walking on the Earth, but we don't
Why
have
would we
footage with the old model. So I suppose the new model, the Artemis model, it's lighter. If
Probably lighter, but maybe it's lighter. But why does that point to a conspiracy? That just means that they have better manufacturing technology or better materials to work with that add back during the Apollo program. Who cares?
but how can this be? I mean, the new model has about 8 ring joints, metallic ring joints, and it's lighter. The old model has none.
Again,
How
I don't know the technology that is in there. What I'm saying is that the roto joints that are used on the new suits have already demonstrated themselves to be a working technology. It is a known thing of how these things work with the people who actually designed these suits. That doesn't mean that weight savings couldn't be made in other areas. I fail to see how any of this is to a conspiracy. Because they're better at making spacesuits, therefore conspiracy?
Yeah, that
Oh, but
seems about the, what I'm hearing. Honestly, I don't want to be rude, but what you're saying is I don't understand how the spacesuit works. Therefore, NASA's fake, and that is pretty ridiculous.
So maybe I'll interject here and say that we could probably move on from this. I don't. I mean, I don't have any. I don't have it personally. I don't have any beef with the suits. I don't think I obviously the suits work underwater, so they are keeping water out and they are keeping air in. Whether that does or doesn't, whether that does or doesn't prove outer space is almost a moot point right now. Even in a concave Earth model, there still could be water up there. So if they are going up into space and then into water as they ascend, I mean that could work too. I mean, NASA using plus we've been scuba diving for a long time. I mean, being able to breathe underwater is something we've been able to do for a long time. So I don't see what the problem is there. So I mean, NASA's, as far as I'm concerned, NASA's suits could work whether the Earth is convex or concave. It just seems that nothing works on the flat Earth. So.
Okay, yeah, nothing works on flat Earth. I think no one here is going to disagree with you there. Reg, do you agree with that statement that nothing works on the flat Earth?
Magic does. Other than that, not much else.
I mean, anything in reality.
In reality, no, nothing works on a flat Earth.
No, no. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so...
I think the gravity works better in the flat Earth model than.
Oh, wait. Did you just say... You think the gravity works better on a flat Earth model?
Yeah.
Can we explore
Because
that statement a little? How does gravity
Yeah,
work
I gotta hear.
better on a flat Earth model?
Because you got a flat surface and a direction to the gravity always down, but so in the concave and the convex model you have to change the direction of the gravity as you move on the
No, you
globe.
don't. Gravity is a
Omnidirectional
center-seeking force. Gravity is a center-seeking force. Center to the mass of the object. What is in the center of the Earth? The core. That's pointed down always when you're on the surface. Always towards the center of the Earth. So as you're walking along the surface of the Earth, the pull of gravity will always be curving with the curving Earth.
Well, but
I think
was
what
meaning.
he's trying to say is that, I think what he's trying to say is that like a two-dimensional world where you have just up and down is simpler than the two spherical Earth models, convex and concave, where you have both spherical, quote-unquote, gravitational forces omnidirectional.
It's certainly not simpler because you have to imagine that a lot of stuff just works because God says so. Whereas on the heliocentric model, we don't have any issues at all. And that's the main thing, that none of you, flat Earth or concave Earth, it doesn't matter. Your same issue is that you don't understand physics. And if you did understand physics, you would understand that a concave Earth is just as impossible as a flat Earth. It literally just, nothing works that way at all. Gravity, like Red says, it pulls towards the center of the Earth, and that's why we can measure diverging plumb bobs. Jesse Waskowski has done it.
I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that because in nature we do see a lot of things that do grow from the center outward. Fruit and lots of vegetables and just a lot of things grow from center outward, like a seed. And so that does kind of work. And concave Earth is still dealing with a spherical center of gravity. Now, we're just asserting that it's from the center, essentially more pushing down on us instead of, from above, rather than being pulling us down from below. We're being pushed down from above, but we still have a spherical center of gravity. We still have a centrifugal and a centripetal, So there's still,
Yeah, but they don't work on a concave
gravity
Earth.
does have a lot to do with magnetism, and as far as I'm concerned, I think it could, in theory, work both ways,
Did you just say gravity has a lot to do with magnetism?
Correct.
I mean, that's not correct, at all. Not even a little. I mean, there's wrong, and then there's what you just said.
Well,
Yeah,
I
agree. I agree with Josh because, in my opinion, the gravity is a force, just like magnetism, but not for iron only. But everything, and
it's not just magnetism is one of the quote unquote gravitational forces. I don't believe that gravity is a singular force. I believe that gravity is a label used to describe an experience. And that doesn't mean that it's wrong necessarily.
I mean, that's definitely right.
But
gravity is more a description of a phenomenon than an explanation of what it is. To understand what it is, you have to have a pretty deep understanding of physics and Einsteinian mechanics and stuff. But again, none of it works on a concave Earth. There isn't an explanation for it on a concave Earth.
Yeah, well, there is. I just gave you one. It's still a center of gravity. It's just above us instead of below us.
Yeah, that doesn't work though, because gravity doesn't work like that. Gravity pulls towards the center of a mass, not outwards towards a celestial sphere of some kind.
But you're saying it pulls because you're on the outside, but if we're on the inside, then it's pushing. It's still a downwards force. Flat earthers will say there's no downward force.
But the force of gravity that we experience is that because of the mass of the entire Earth underneath us. if we were on the inside of a sphere, there would be less mass underneath us, and gravity wouldn't be as strong as it is. Gravity, as we understand it, with the equation Fg equals gm1m2 over r squared, doesn't work on a concave Earth.
No, the formula, Greg, doesn't work on neither model.
No, it works
in the
perfectly on the
convex.
heliocentric model.
No,
Perfectly.
it doesn't.
No, yeah, no, it does. Absolutely no problems at all.
I think it doesn't.
I mean, do you have anything to back
Can you
that up?
explain how? Can you explain how?
Yeah,
Go on then.
yeah.
All
Because
right, give
maybe
me one contradiction. Give me one contradiction with any of Newton's equations and the spherical Earth.
okay. So, in the solar system, we got some issue with Mercury orbit. So that it got fixed with Einstein relativity, they say. But if you look on the sky, if we look with a telescope, which it's from 1600, so and we take a look of a galaxy, the shape of the galaxy. I mean, the galaxy has arms, and they say that galaxy stays there from millions of years.
Okay,
So,
none of
in
that is an
millions
issue
of
with
years,
Newton's equation.
if that galaxy is formed, it's a same place by the gravity. It's impossible to have arms. The galaxy wouldn't have arms.
Can you explain to me mathematically why it's impossible with the universal law of gravitation for galaxies to have
Because
arms?
by your formula.
Yeah, that
But
formula. Can you explain
yeah, but
how,
then
using that
you say
formula, we
Newton
can't have arms on the galaxy?
the formula is not from Newton. The formula is from Cavendish because
No, it's not.
No, it's
yes,
not.
it is.
No, Newton came up with the
No, it's
equation Fg
not.
equals gm1m2 over r squared. Cavendish
Right,
didn't even
right. But if
actually
you, but
use it. He
Greg,
was more about figuring out what the density of underneath him was.
Greg, Newton says that there is possibly a mass attraction which decreases by the square of the distance,
Yeah. Huh?
right?
I
So,
mean,
but
he just described what he saw.
all right, but without the big G, right? Without that number, which discovered Cavendish, the formula doesn't work.
No,
Are you agree?
Cavendish didn't discover Big G.
What?
You said Cavendish discovered Big G. No, he didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So, what's your issue?
The issue is
within Newton's equation, it actually backs up everything within Cavendish's experiments, it backed up everything Einstein was saying perfectly.
no,
Yes.
no,
Yes.
no.
You can say no all you want, but unless you can present me some mathematics to back that up, you are wrong. Everything that Cavendish
No.
did worked with Newton's equations. There was no issues.
Let's see. The big G is 67 at 10 of minus 11, right? So it's a very small number.
The gravitational constant, Big G.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's 0.11 zeros, then 6, 7.
Yeah. And do you know what it's measured in? What the units are?
Yeah, Newton per meter, right? Newton per meter square.
Not really, but do you know what that actually represents?
Yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter. The formula without the big G doesn't work. So Newton was publishing his theory on 1687, right? And
What do you mean it
Cavendish
doesn't
was.
work?
It doesn't work
Based
because
on what?
if you no, let's say you got a mass of a kilogram, and you got another mass of a kilogram, and you put it 1 meter away, with the formula of Newton without the big G, you will have a tremendous force. Just look into it.
I did look into it. I'm not seeing where the contradiction lies.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a contradiction between Newton's or Cavendish's or whoever's fucking equation and orbital mechanics with the heliocentric model. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that the formula doesn't work at all. Right?
It does work.
Except it does. It does. It works perfectly with the equations of. Dude, we can verify it.
Great.
We can verify the equation works.
Okay, that's what you're saying, but what I'm saying is the formula with the big G doesn't work.
But it does.
Without the big
Except it does.
You keep saying it doesn't work. What doesn't it work in? Because every bit of math I've ever seen shows that it does work. That constant of proportionality is exactly right, and it's measured all the time.
Okay. The formula with the big G works a little on a solar system level.
Yeah, we know that it's not entirely
works at
accurate
planetary
on galactic and bigger levels. We know that it's not exactly accurate. That's why you would move on to use Einstein's field equations for things like that. And interestingly enough, Einstein's field equations can be derived to get Newton's universal law of gravitational attraction because they both describe exactly the same thing. But that's like saying, is 3.141 pi? No, that's not pi because pi is 3.14156. But both are pi, just one is more accurate than the other.
Yeah, that's not saying that the value that we're using is wrong.
Okay, but anyway, the shape of the galaxy, right? Debunk.
We're not talking about galactic levels. I asked a very specific question. I think we've gotten away from it. So I'm going to ask this question yet again. Can you give me a certain example within our solar system, where, for example, can I calculate the duration of an orbit for the Earth using Newton's? Could I figure out, like, let's say, the distance to the sun using Newton's equations and stuff like that?
With the Newton equation, without the big G, you cannot. No, you're not able, because you will have.
Okay. Wait. Did you just say you cannot calculate orbital velocities and stuff using Newton's equation?
No, you can, because.
Reg, you should probably tell NASA and SpaceX and stuff that they're doing it wrong.
Oh, really? Okay. Hey, do you want to do me a?
There's actually a guy from Blue Orbital in the chat. Dudes, you're doing it all wrong. Apparently, Big G, it doesn't work.
Okay. Hey, Craig.
Yeah.
Do me a solid.
Yeah.
Send you a PDF. Go ahead and do this.
Is it more donkey porn?
That'll be the next link I send you, but just go ahead and screen share that. Okay, so I'm currently, you're in luck, my friend, because I'm currently working on a video where Newton's equations are going to come in very handy. This is something that I wrote myself. You're going to have to increase the resolution a little bit, Craig, just saying.
Okay, back to you yet.
So, as you can see, Big G is in this equation. These equations can be worked all the way down to the point where I reach something. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, Craig. All the way to the bottom, I was able to derive Kepler's third law, which means the square of the orbiting period of an object is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. All this was derived from Newton's equations. And guess what? This corresponds perfectly with the orbital speed of the International Space Station, which I have measured. It translates perfectly to the orbital speed of geostationary satellites, which we have also measured. And it also works out pretty well for the speed of the moon, which has been measured. It also works out perfectly for the speed for the Earth, for Mars, for Jupiter, for Saturn, for Venus, and yes, even the orbital period of Mercury. It doesn't explain the shift in Mercury's orbit, but it explains the period just fine. So once again, I'm using Newton's equations to figure out Kepler's third law. And Kepler's third law has already been demonstrated to work in reality because it comports with reality. So I ask the question again, where is there a problem with Newton's equations? Thanks, Craig.
Math.
Math.
Okay, so what you were showing was some formula with the big G on it, right?
Yeah.
So that's not Newton equation.
I can assure you it is.
I don't care who posted it. I don't care if it's Newton's equations. I don't care if it's Cavendish's equations. I don't care if it's the equations of Mickey Mouse. It works. That's the point.
But I care. But I care because between Newton and Cavendish was passing about 120 years.
Don't care. The equations work. The equations work. Do you deny that the equations work, though? Do you deny that the equations work? That I can use it to make predictions and those predictions pan out?
Can you listen, please? The Newton equation is without the big G. And from 1687 to 1799, or whatever, when Cavendish performed the balance experiment, so the formula of Newton wasn't work. Without the big G, it doesn't work. You will have a tremendous force. You need to apply that small number, which is the big G. If you don't apply it, doesn't work.
Do you know what that big G represents?
Hang on, Craig. Hang on. Okay.
Yeah. When you multiply that big,
for fuck's sake,
you will have
a
reducing the amount of the force. If you
Once again, I do not care who came up with the equation. I used the equation, and it comported with reality. How is that possible if the equation doesn't work, so say you?
Well, I was told you, the equation, it's working on a solar system level.
Yeah.
Which is what we've been saying the entire time.
Universe.
Yeah. And
no one claims that it does. No one claims that it works on a galactic scale. Once again, I don't need to know pi. Yeah, I don't need to know pi to a trillion decimal places if 10 will do. Newton's equations, or whoever you want to call it, who came up with the equation, is good enough for our purposes within the solar system. For example, I can use Newton's equations to derive Kepler's third law. And from there, I can verify whether it's correct or whether it's full of shit by making observations of the night sky. It works for the space station. It works for geostationary satellites. It works for the moon. It works for the orbit of Earth. It works for the orbit of Mars. It works for all of that. So yes, the equation works for what it's meant to work with.
But how that come that the equation works only on the solar system and doesn't work outside the solar system?
Because it's not as accurate as is needed to calculate on those large scales, which is
it doesn't.
It doesn't matter that it doesn't work on such large scales because it's accurate enough for it to work on the scales that we need it to. But when we want to go to those large scales, we have other things to do that for us, thanks to Albert Einstein's theory of relativity.
Exactly.
No, the Albert Einstein and relativity doesn't fix the problem with the galaxies and the universe. Doesn't fix it.
We don't use this equation on the galaxies and the entire universe. We keep saying that. You're saying, oh, there is a problem with applying this equation to the entire galaxy. And we're saying, yeah, we know. That's why we don't use it on the entire universe and the entire galaxy.
And when you go
All
on
right.
to
So,
universal scales, you have to take into account the obvious mass of the universe that's being caused by the placeholder name of dark matter and dark energy. But there isn't an issue with the
exactly.
gravity. But none of that affects Newton's law of gravitational attraction, because Newton's law of gravitational attraction was calculated using crude stuff on a local scale. And when anything that NASA or Blue Origins or SpaceX need to use it for, it works perfectly fine, because we don't need to calculate stuff on a much larger scale. And here's the other important thing. No one is claiming we know everything. We don't really know even what dark matter or dark energy is. We don't know why, we can't really see it, why it appears to be non-baryonic in nature, but none of that matters, because none of that affects the fact that Newton's law of gravitational attraction works absolutely perfectly when you apply it on like a solar system level. It doesn't have a problem.
but it matters to me because if the
Because you
gravity,
don't understand. That's what matters.
the gravity, if the gravity works on the in our solar system, but doesn't work outside the solar system, that means we are special. So you
No,
guys
no, no, no,
say,
no, no, right. No, I need to stop. No, no, no. Let me stop you there, because the reason it doesn't work on, say, a galactic scale is because the distances involved are so great that Newton's equation isn't accurate enough to represent what happens. On a much smaller scale, Newton's equation is accurate enough to show us what happens. But on a much larger scale, we need more complicated equations to actually explain what is happening,
oh,
to make it
okay,
accurate enough. Like we were saying
let's
earlier, it's the difference of knowing pi to 5 digits or 10 digits. It doesn't matter that you know pi to 10 digits. It doesn't make pi to 5 digits wrong.
no, it's not about the digits. It's about the bigger mistake here. But
No, there's no
let's say if
mistakes.
There is no mistake.
let's say the gravity works on the solar system, right? So if it doesn't work outside the solar system, how do we know that the gravity exists outside the solar system? How do we
Okay,
know?
Because we can actually see planets orbiting other stars.
Uh-huh.
And guess what? When we calculate the speed of those orbits, we can use Newton's equations to derive the mass of the star that it is orbiting.
even the planets.
Yeah, even the planets. We can
Even
see orbits in other. We can
even
see
the
orbits of
molecular
other stars.
even the molecular consistency of atmospheres of planets to relatively close stars.
It
It all
could be like
works.
this, guys, but I haven't seen any
But no,
planet.
it's not like the equation just switches off and stops working at an extra solar system level. It doesn't. It just becomes less and less accurate. It's the same as the whole 8 inches per square mile thing, right? For a couple of 100 miles, it's kind of accurate. But as you go further and further and further, it becomes less and less accurate. So, is 8 inches per square mile okay to use at a local level? Sure, it kind of works. But could you use that to calculate the circumference of the Earth? Fuck no, because it's not accurate enough. It doesn't
We
mean...
can use. Hang on. We can use Newton's equations to calculate perfectly the orbital motion of the TRAPPIST-1 system. The TRAPPIST-1 system is 39.46 light years away. So we know that the gravity that we're experiencing in our solar system is the same type of gravity that's happening 40 light years away, because the same equations can be used in both systems to render accurate results that comport with reality, that comport with the observations that we have made of the system. And that's not the only system that we have used these equations on where they still work.
Okay, but I got a question.
I'm
If
sure you
the
do.
yeah, you guys say it works on a planet that we can see with our newest telescope, like Hubble or so. So I haven't seen any planet. I've just seen CGI, but whatever. If there is
No,
any
you haven't just seen
planet outside,
CGI. I can guarantee you that. We know an Emmy
Everything
is
award-winning
CGI.
We know an Emmy
oh, if really is there any planet that outside our solar system in some galaxy that shows right gravity? It works with gravity. How's that come?
Most
That the galaxy shape doesn't work with gravity. Because
what?
if
Oh my
any
God.
Why
galaxy,
doesn't the galaxy shape work with gravity? I mean, let's just talk about the fact that all of the stars in our galaxy are orbiting the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy, just as
no,
predicted.
that's then we
I
have no evidence of it.
by the way,
We have
I
no
Well,
just
actually,
I just want to I just want to make a correction here. We're not seeing other solar systems in other galaxies.
Oh no, definitely
We're
not.
seeing other solar systems in our own galaxy. Like I said, the TRAPPIST-1 system is about 40 light years away. When we apply Newton's equations to describe the motion of that solar system, they work out perfectly. We're applying this math to not only our solar system, but another solar system. And we've applied it to many other solar systems beyond the TRAPPIST-1 system. The TRAPPIST-1 is just the most famous.
Because there's a lot.
The math works. The math works.
Yeah.
We're using it to calculate the speed, to calculate its orbital period. We're using it to calculate the mass of the star at the center of it.
But here's
It's
the thing.
working out perfectly.
Yeah.
And this is the same math that we can apply to our own solar system, the same math that I can use to calculate the distance to the sun, the orbital period of the International Space Station, geostationary satellites, or the fucking moon and the other planets like Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Yeah, but here's the thing. We know that it's not to be used for calculating the orbits of galaxies and things like that, because that's, it's literally not accurate enough for that, and that's not an issue that we have to use something else for that. It's
Yep.
not a problem. You don't use a meter rule stick to measure microbes. You use an electron microscope. You use the right tool for the right job.
I'm trying to split something in half. Okay, Craig? I'm trying to split something in half. So I have a tool that's meant to split things in half. And the thing I'm trying to split in half is a piece of cheese. It's nice. I think they call it a knife, maybe? A knife? However, because it would be absolutely useless splitting like, let's say, a log in half, does that take away from the fact that it's a sharp tool? That edge to it?
No.
No, it doesn't. But the axe has an edge with a little bit more meat to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away from the fact that the smaller knife is still a cutting utensil, that it still has an edge. I'm just using something which also has an edge with a little bit more meat to it because it's more appropriate for the job. Newton's equation is the knife for the small jobs, and Einstein's field equations are the axe for the bigger jobs.
You need to calm
You
down.
use the right tool
Reds.
for the jobs. You use
need-
the right tool for the job.
Reg, you need to watch out. Gearstriber's in the chat, and you said knife, and he got all excited. So just be careful.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Yeah, you know what the Germans are like.
Those blood over tech people that get all freaked out too. You gotta be careful.
But yeah, so our point is that there is no issue with Newton's equation. There simply isn't.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I want to interject here and say I get no problems with the equations. I think the lights are much closer, and if you could rescale those. Not that these equations are wrong, but I think those equations work for lights at those distances. So I'm not here to argue those equations.
You think they work for what,
Because
sorry?
that's not my. Well, these equations will give us light that it'll put the moon at that distance, a 250,000 miles away. It'll put the sun at 93 million miles away. So Reds is claiming these equations work, and I'm not arguing that. I did have a question, just to switch gears a little bit, because I didn't want to, argue about equations and distances of light, and we could be arguing about that forever.
Okay.
What I did want to ask is, and this doesn't really have anything to do with the shape of Earth, not directly. Regardless of shape, I noticed that, number one, from high altitude balloon footage, we can't see the stars. And I'm trying to. We've also, and so I'm not making the claim as to why I don't know. So I wanted to ask you guys if you had any input on that. We've
Reds
had
is
some
exposure.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably just
Some
exposure,
don't.
right?
It's exposure. The stars are dimmer than the ground that the video is filming. To make sure that the ground is properly exposed, the exposure needs to be set to properly expose the ground. However, as a consequence of that, it's not going to be properly exposed for the stars. You would need some incredible high dynamic range in order to make that happen, and unfortunately, that is outside of the capability of most cameras that you can send on a weather balloon.
Plus, from the ground, you're looking through a lot more. It's a different atmosphere. You're looking. Once you're high up, say 20 miles, you're not looking through all that, dense.
Well, the atmosphere is thinner, yes, but
Yeah, so that's gonna.
that's not
gonna
really the
happen.
reason why you can't see the stars. Like Red says, the camera is going to be, the aperture from the camera is going to be overloaded from the light that's reflecting off the surface of the Earth, which will make it impossible for it to register the dimmer light coming from stars in space. But if you have the exposure set right, where you could probably barely see the Earth, you would be able to see the stars. It's just exposure.
Hey, Craig, can
Yo.
you show this image on the screen, and then I can ask a question?
Sure, it's up.
Okay. So this is a image of a soccer field at night. Where are the stars?
You mean football?
Soccer, fucking heathen.
Exactly. So right, you would have to, if those lights were off, you'd be able to see the stars, and simply by turning those lights on, like there's no stars.
If I were to overexpose the soccer field, which means the soccer field will look like just a pure white light on the screen, then I might be able to properly expose for the stars that are above it. But because the camera is exposed to, or is set to show the... Oh, God damn it. Hang on a second. Because the camera has its exposure set to properly expose the field, it's not properly exposed to expose the stars.
Right. So you're right. Okay. So the reason I asked this question, I'm just trying to learn because I don't know. I'm not claiming I'm not trying to debunk anything here. I'm trying to get some answers. So like when I compare, what you just showed, the soccer field there or whatever, that makes perfect sense because those lights are there. Of course, we're not going to be able to see stars there because of the exposure. From the high altitude balloon footage at night, there's no immediate light source nearby that would cause that.
No, there is. The entire Earth is basically illuminated by the sun. Because the entire Earth is illuminated by the sun, it's reflecting light back up towards the camera. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see the surface of the Earth in that footage. So the camera is properly exposed to show the surface of the ground and not the stars that are above it.
Does that answer the question?
Sure. Yeah, we're good.
Right. Okay. So, why don't we talk about the fact that, and I'm sure Reds has been in this longer than I have, right? Whether it's concave, flat, or heliocentric. But Reds, have you ever, in all the years you've been in this, have you ever seen any evidence that it is anything other than a sphere of a circumference of about 25,000 miles?
Through my argumentations for the last, 3.5, 4 years now, let's just say 4 years, and my actual observations out in the field, the only thing that the evidence points to is that of a spherical globe. Not flat, not concave, but the model that you see on Google Earth. It's round.
All of the evidence matches up with all of the other evidence, right? There's never any confliction between any of it.
There is no contradiction. I haven't been able to find it. I have asked people to point me in the direction where a contradiction lies, and when I go and investigate it myself, I don't find a contradiction. I find that they simply did the observation wrong. Like, for example, trying to measure the angular size of the sun without a solar filter.
Dope. Zetic astronomy. Right, so the reason I'm asking Reds this, guys, is because all of the evidence that is ever presented always points towards what we say to be right. There is never any evidence that possibly points towards flat or concave that can't be explained by the heliocentric model. And do neither of you see that as an issue? That there literally is no evidence to suggest it's other than what we've been told?
Red, one question, please. Okay. One quick question, please, Red. You got optical observation. You have done parallax on the ISS, on the moon. And what about the path of the light? How do we know that the light is traveling straight line and is not bending? Well, how do we know it?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Wait, so is your question, how do we know the nature of light is to go straight?
Right, so, I mean, we do the parallax of the ISS on the moon, right? Your observation, your evidence is based on what you suppose that is a straight line between your eye and the ISS and the moon. But how do we know that the light is traveling in straight line and not in a bending line? Like, I mean,
Because
Einstein says the light is bending, so we got the evidence of the solar eclipse when the stars appears from behind the sun. So that's some evidence that the light is bending.
Wow,
so how
that's
long
stupid hurt.
not bending on when we do other observation like the ISS on the moon?
Okay. The reason why I know that the light isn't bending to the extremes that you are saying is because the ISS isn't destroyed. The image of the ISS isn't destroyed to all hell. If the light from the ISS was bending in the extremes that you were talking about, I would expect to see some hella distortion with the ISS. I would also expect the path that the ISS took in our footage to be distorted as well. But we don't see that. What do we see? Straight lines. Straight lines. So if we're dealing with distortion means bending, why am I not seeing that bending when it comes to the ISS path? Why am I not seeing that bending when it comes to the spherical nature of the moon? I should expect the moon to be wobbling all over the place. If I were to see that, then yeah, parallax measurements would be impossible. But I don't see that. I also don't see that with towers in the distance because I don't see them acting like jello. I don't see them wiggling like a funhouse mirror. I see them looking like towers, like skyscrapers. There is some wave to the atmosphere, some, but not enough to cause a significant issue where my values have to be thrown out.
Okay, but it seems that you didn't understand me completely because if the light is bending, as I'm saying, you will continue to see the straight line of the ISX trajectory on the moon. If the light is bending, as I think that there is bending, you will not able to see it. For example, until 1990, I think it was, when the English Eddington was making the solar eclipse picture, the Einstein theory wasn't confirmed. So we didn't know that the light is bending, right? So all the observations was telling us that the light is never bending, even on such a big scale as it's flowing across the sun, right? So that
you're talking about gravitational lensing,
right? So until the Eddington picture on, I think it was in 1919, right? So all the science community says the light is not bending in any case, right? So
All right.
it could.
You ready? You ready for the answer?
Okay.
The answer to your question, how do I know the light isn't bending, is the reason because I observed the sun from sun up to sun down. I took a picture of the sun every 30 minutes through a solar filter.
Oh,
If
I've got that.
the light was going through different layers of atmosphere where you would get different degrees of bend, then I should see the shape of the sun change throughout the day. I should see the angular size of the sun change throughout the day. But guess what I did not see? I saw the same angular size of the sun. I saw the same shape of the sun. Everything was the same from picture to picture throughout the day. This is my video, by the way, and I did this back in, what, 2017, 2016?
Way before I came on the scene.
Yeah, I did this observation. If the atmosphere was causing such dramatic distortions where light would be bending wildly, I should see that illustrated with my images of the sun. And I took these images from sun up to sun down, and there was no bending. There was no distortion, at least not enough to cause a significant problem with my parallax measurement. So while it's good to guess or theorize that there might be bending screwing with my measurements, I'm going to need actual evidence that the effect is actually there, that it has plagued my observations before I accept it. Because as of right now, all the evidence points to no bending being visible in my observations. No bending making my observations invalid.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I want to point out is that I would actually agree with Red here that with that solar filter you do see a constant, perfect, spherical or circular rather, sun, and there doesn't appear to be any distortion at all. But without the filter, that's where you do see the distortion. So
Of course you do. Yeah.
I think that the
That's
filter
called
is
lens
eliminating. Right. But what I'm saying is there's the difference between when you filter and non-filter. There is distortion versus no distortion. And so I think that's
no, there isn't.
There is
no distortion. There is distortion in the sensor. There's also distortion in the lens.
Yeah, adding a solar filter isn't going to take away refractive... wait, one sec. Adding a solar filter isn't going to take away refractive effects. For instance, the apparent position of the sun in the sky, it isn't going to all of a sudden change because you stick on a solar filter. What a solar filter does is remove so much of the light that you don't get any overloading of the sensor on the aperture of the camera, which is what causes lens flare. So it allows you to get an accurate image of the actual size of what you're looking at.
Correct. Glare is not distortion. Glare is glare.
Yeah.
Glare is caused by consumer-grade optics being pointed at a bright as hell light like the sun.
I'm talking about when we film. Okay, for example, when we film this, when you zoom and film the sun setting, right? Flat earthers do it all the time and prove, it's not going over the curve, blah blah blah, idiot, whatever. But the point is that when they zoom out and film the sun rising or setting, without a filter, there's oftentimes the sun does not appear circular at all. It doesn't even appear like half the time. There's all kinds of distortion there. And then you add the solar filter and you see, okay, that's perfectly circular. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Right.
Yeah, we know. That's why we often say doing it that way is the wrong way to do it. If the atmosphere was causing such distortion as to make my observations invalid, I should be able to see that reflected in the images that I have taken of the sun from sun up to sundown. Throughout the entire day, there was no distortion. So what conclusion am I going to come to? The distortion that you are talking about, the type of distortion that would make my observations invalid, doesn't exist. So that's my reasoning for not believing it.
Yeah, I'm not claiming your observations are invalid. The point I'm trying to make is that there's got to be
not you, the other guy, not you, the other guy. The distortion that the other guy, what's his name? I got questions.
Yeah.
So Mr. Question Asker over here, he proposed a possible distortion or an atmosphere that was distorting my images to such an extent that it would make my measurements invalid. That distortion doesn't appear to exist.
Now, Red, my name is Ruben Lionel. My channel is called I Got Questions. So I always got questions, more and more. So
Yeah, but
that's
do you
not
ever accept
what
any
I'm.
answers?
Yeah, but about bending light, I'm not stating that it should be a distortion or a some kind of wobbling
Right.
of an observation. It's just an accurate bending of light that you got the same result, so you got the same observation as you got now. So you got the perfect observation, and you're not able to you're not aware of the bending of light.
Right. Okay.
So
So here's the thing. Right. All observations indicate that when there is no medium and no interfering gravitational body, light will travel in a straight line. The effect of light bending around the moon and stuff, the gravitational lensing, is as predicted by Einstein's equations around relativity. That's what we expect to see. So there is something causing the light to bend there. But if you look at something like LIGO, which is designed to have a straight line without any gravitation, there's nothing affecting anything inside. It shows that light travels in a straight line when there's nothing affecting it. In this case, the entire thing is tangent to the surface of the Earth. So light isn't being bent enough because the Earth doesn't have that much of a mass to bend it that you would see over that distance. But there's no atmosphere in there, and what we see is that light travels in a perfectly straight line. And the conclusions that we can draw based around everything that we understand about light is that for light's natural state as a wave/particle is to travel in a straight line. And
guess what? That's exactly what we see in my observations. We see that or what I should say is, we do not see the type of distortions that we would expect to see with a bending of light. A bending of light is going to cause a distortion to the image, period. That's what we see with atmospheric refraction. Atmospheric refraction is the bending of light.
Yeah.
So when you have a bending of light, you have the image being distorted in one way or another. We do not see that when we're looking at the sun or the moon, or in that case, the International Space Station, because you can observe the moon from rise to set, the sun from rise to set, and it will remain relatively circular, almost perfectly circular throughout the entire day and night. When I did this observation, that's the conclusion I was able to get from my data. Okay, building on that, I can then say, this type of distortion does not exist that will cause a parallax measurement to be invalid. So I can go out, do my parallax measurement, confirm that the ISS is in space, and tell everyone who thinks it's a plane to go fuck themselves, and feel pretty confident about that.
I don't agree with you, Ray.
I wanted to ask you a question, real quick. Number one, thank you for posting a lot of the footage that you do that a lot of people call fake. I know it's not, so I wanted to defend you on that. Number one. Number two, this conversation, the conversation that we were just having poses a question for me, about the bending light, and when Craig brought up the LIGO. So light in a vacuum will travel in a straight line.
Yeah.
So the question I have, because about the heliocentric model lunar eclipse, is a question that I have because I simply don't understand. Because
I get that.
So I'm asking somebody who might be able to explain it for me. My question is if light is traveling in a straight line in a vacuum, then the heliocentric model requires bending light for the lunar eclipse to work. They're claiming that the light is bending around the Earth and causing the, So
sorry.
If outer space is a vacuum and light is bending,
Josh, could you
then
just
how does
tell us
lunar
exactly
eclipse,
what causes a lunar eclipse?
not the solar, the lunar.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, right?
Right.
So what causes a lunar eclipse? In the heliocentric model, what is the actual cause?
Bending light is required in the explanation for the lunar eclipse.
Not really. It's not. No.
All right. Well, I'm just on a cell phone right now, so I can't really screen share.
a lunar
I know
eclipse,
what he's asking. I know what he's asking.
Okay, go on, Red.
Like
When the
umbra and
moon
a penumbra.
goes, well, hang on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. When the moon is behind the Earth relative to the sun, the moon is in the Earth's shadow, okay? The Earth, however, has an atmosphere, and that atmosphere will bend the light around it, but only in certain wavelengths because of the amount of atmosphere it needs to travel through. Longer wavelengths of light travel further through a medium. And so that's why the moon will have a reddish hue to it, that blood moon look to it. That's because of the atmosphere of the Earth. The atmosphere of the Earth that is blocking the light from the sun. However, some of that light gets bent due to the atmosphere of the Earth, where only the red light, mostly the red light, gets through, because longer wavelengths of light can travel through that medium easier than other wavelengths of light. So the red gets through easier, the red gets bent around because of the atmosphere of the Earth, and then it shines on the moon, giving it that reddish tinge, that blood moon look. Blue light gets filtered out. Red light, because of its longer wavelength, can travel through.
Yeah, I agree with that explanation. Thank you.
No problem.
Did we just
Appreciate it.
Did we just explain something using science and it get accepted? Reds, am I asleep?
Yeah, that explanation actually works. Within whichever model is right. That explanation that he just gave works in the concave model too. So it works. It works in the if it works in the helio, then.
Right. So how does a lunar eclipse work on a concave model? Because in a lunar eclipse, it's literally the Earth blocking out the light from the sun, casting a shadow on the moon. So how does that work on concave?
In the concave model, all right. So in the concave model, you have obviously all of the universe is contained within the Earth. So you still have orbital mechanics where you still have these planets which are real and sun and moon orbiting around the celestial sphere inside. And so when you have the sun's light is bending around the Earth, just like Red said, light is bending, and so you're going to see it's going to have that reddish orangish color because certain colors bend at different wavelengths. And so we have on the opposite side of the sun, wherever the sun is, light is bending around the Earth and causing and converging back towards the celestial sphere in the center, and so it in a toroidal shaped, if you will.
So light does a twirl around and goes on the back of the moon.
No. What I'm saying is light emitted from the sun is bending around the Earth, and so
why?
Because it's bending around the Earth, it's gonna on the direct opposite side of the Earth, or the direct opposite side of celestial sphere or heaven, whatever you want to call it, nucleus, whatever. Always opposite the sun is going to be a void-shaped area where there's no light, and so when the moon passes through that area, that's what's eclipsing the moon. Instead of a solid object, the moon is actually the void-shaped area passing the moon because the sun is traveling at a faster speed than the moon.
Reg, did any of that make sense to you?
All it basically shows is that if light was acting the way that it was just described, the moon would be even more distorted. Because you see how, look at the yellow lines in this image that you're sharing. Those yellow lines, if we were to be in that area of the Earth, and we were in the path of those yellow lines, looking straight up, we would see some mega distortion. We would see shit like you wouldn't believe.
Actually, no. When the sun is directly above you, that's when you're looking. That's when it would be at zenith, coincidentally, and that's where there's no bent light. Is when you're looking perfectly straight up, if the sun is directly above you. And so, opposite that yellow area, you see where at the top where you have those red lines. So that's where this is kind of like a archaic example, but you have the moon up there, and it would go through what's called the Gegenschein. You know, that's what it's called, the Gegenschein.
Yeah, I do not believe for a second that there wouldn't be massive amounts of distortion within the yellow region, because if you bend light to that extreme, it creates a visual effect as a consequence. That visual effect would be stretching. When we do observations of the moon or the sun, we do not see that stretching.
Right, because in this model here, the sun is we have a completely different understanding of what the sun is, how far away it is, and how it actually
about
works.
About 150 million kilometers.
Okay. Well, the point is here is in this model, which is just basically an inversion of the other model. Everything's on the inside. You have all the lights would be at a closer distance, and everything would just be scaled down. Everything would just be smaller and closer. And so I think a lot of the equations could still possibly work, just downscaled. Especially since we don't understand exactly what the center of the universe is in this model, or in outer space it would be those black holes, or time. We really don't understand it. You have things like time dilation, which kind of proves that the further we get away from the surface of Earth, now we start affecting time, and so we really don't understand the universe, like we said, as
So,
96% I'm stupid.
Are
Understanding more about what the heavens are might give more answers to how some of these equations that we can test and use that do work, these gravitational constants that do work. There is a downward force,
Are you saying that the entire universe is contained within this area?
Quite possibly, yes. And
I mean,
the inside could be
that's a
bigger than
lovely
the
story, but objects don't infinitely shrink as you go towards them. I mean, there's just no evidence that, or any physics to back up anything like that. I literally don't understand.
I think there's a lot more.
Here's the thing. You can invert the look, but you cannot invert the physics. Physics is a one-way street. It always has been, always will be. So yeah, you can invert the look, but you will not have any physics to explain it. Nor would we have any mechanism to explain how we can look at the sun through a solar filter and not see a tremendous amount of stretching, given what that model is showing.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention, based on what you just said, is I'll give one example. It is the gravitational constant itself. You said everything's a one-way ticket. So, here, I'll bash on flat Earth land a little bit. Flat Earthers will say it's just density, which is foolishness, because there is a downwards force, and we can measure that force, and we can measure the speed of it, and we can use things like equations and whatnot to make predictions. And so I don't discount that science. All I'm saying is that just because we have a force that is measurable, it doesn't necessarily prove which direction it's coming from. Just because it's a downwards force doesn't necessarily mean it's coming from below us. That same force that's measurable and predictable could just be coming from above us.
Yeah, no, but when you can measure
there's no proof that would say that force is just because you can. Because that force.
But Josh, you're saying there's no proof, but there is proof, because the surface of the Earth has been measured, and plumb bobs have been measured to diverge the amount expected. Surveyors have done this over and over and over. So you keep saying there's no. Sorry.
My Tampa Bay observation does it.
Yeah.
Diverge.
The plumb bobs are further apart at the top than they are at the bottom.
Well, that would be converge. All right. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think there's conflicting results.
24 hours a day. My brain is.
I'll be honest and say there's conflicting. No, it was a mistake. That's fine. But the plumb bobs is whatever, because it's from the past. It's not something we can test. I hate.
Well, it is. So surveyors do it all the time, and Jesse Wachowski did it quite a lot.
Craig, can you bring up that image again?
Yeah.
He's got plumb bobs. Well, hold on. Time out. You said You
Well,
said Jesse did plumb
he's used to theodolites, which are leveled and plumb when they're set up.
I got you.
Where did I put that picture? I think I just deleted it because it was really bad. One sec.
I mean, that's fair if you don't have that image anymore.
I do. I just have to remember where I put it. Yeah, in downloads. Okay, one sec.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go. There we go. Yep.
Okay. Cool. So, question: if I'm in the very middle of that light cone, let's call it the very middle, the lines going from me to that light source is at a certain distance. If I'm on the edge of that light cone, the light has to travel a further distance in order to reach my eyes, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think same.
Yeah, so if I'm in the very middle of that cone, light has to travel a shorter distance to reach my eyes than it would if I was standing on the edge of that cone, at the very end of that light cone. It would have to travel further to reach my eyes.
Yeah, let's say you're on the equator and it's the equinox, and the sun it's passing just above you. So let's say 12 o'clock, you just the sun you got the sun on the zenith, right? So
Yeah,
the sun,
but I'm talking about this particular model that's being shown on the screen. So just to be clear.
Yeah, me too. Let me
Okay.
finish. You're
Okay.
on the equator, it's the equinox, so you got the sun on your zenith, it's right above you. So let's say the sun is about 3,500 kilometers away, and another observer that is on the equator too, but 90 degrees when it's 6 o'clock on the morning, let's say, he see the sun rising, right? So he got the sun by the path of the light, maybe twice or three times the distance. He got not on the straight line, but on a bending line. So the photon from the sun to his eyes, it's traveled, let's say, 10,000 kilometers. And I don't
All
know
right.
if
So
that's
basically, all right. Just questions for the concave earther. I just want to confirm a few things for the concave earther and the concave earther only. If I'm standing in the very center of this light cone, light would travel to my eyes at a certain distance. But if I was on the edge of that light cone, because light has to follow a curved path instead of a straight line, it would take longer. There would be a longer path for it to get to my eyes. Correct?
correct.
Okay. Is that correct?
The light.
Not you, not you. The other guy. I'm asking the other guy.
Josh.
Okay. So my answer, yeah. In theory, yeah, light would. I really don't think light has a. I think light is a perturbation. I don't think it actually travels, but that's neither here nor there. It is a further distance.
Excuse me. The fuck
if
did
light
you
is
just
traveling,
say?
it would.
Craig, calm your tits. Calm your tits.
All right.
Okay.
So here's in this model, there is an actual sun in the sky orbiting about the Earth. Okay, number one, but we have, but our eyes have a limit. Every person, every eye, flesh or machine, even cameras, have a visibility range. Every eye, every retina, every lens can only see so far hemispherically.
I repeat,
if you're
the
standing,
fuck did you just say?
Craig,
okay.
please, for the love of fuck.
Listen. Every eye, flesh or machine, can only see so far in all directions. It's limit, your range of sight, period. And so in all directions, every observer can only see so far. So no matter how far away a light is, the sun is always going to be manifested close to that viewer.
Yeah, but the thing is that because
farther away. And so it just like in the outer space convex model, in concave Earth, you know, even according to the heliocentric model, those stars that look close are really far away. And the same is true in concave Earth. Stars that look close, light sources that look close, are actually farther away. So
the thing is
both
the thing I'm trying to point out here. The thing I'm trying to point out here, I'm not talking about two models. I don't care about the heliocentric model right now. I'm talking about this image right here in front of us. If I'm in the center of this cone, light has a certain distance to travel. On the edge of the cone, light has to travel a further distance in order to reach my eyes. Just on that alone, nothing else matters. Just on that alone, am I correct thus far?
the light source would be a further distance away from an observer at the edge of the yellow light cone, if you will, near a sunrise or near a sunset.
Yes, would have.
Then if
okay, perfect.
Directly under zenith, yes, that is a shorter distance, so I get you right. Same page.
Okay, perfect. As an object gets closer to you, i.e. a light has a shorter distance to travel, it's going to appear to be a certain angular size. As an object is further from you, i.e. the light has a further distance to travel, it will appear smaller to you. So the question is, in this model, we would expect to see the angular size of the sun change throughout the day. Yet in reality, we don't. So my question is, why?
Because the sun is being projected to the sky. I don't think we're seeing the actual sun in the sky. The actual sun is projecting itself through, and we're seeing a manifestation of it.
Well,
so it's not going to.
In part, you are correct, because we do see an apparent position of the sun because of refraction of the atmosphere. But
it is slightly.
It's only slightly. It's not bent 360 degrees like you're saying that.
The only way
bends.
the angular size is if the size of the actual sun changed. Then we'd notice the difference in angular size of the apparent sun is if there was an actual change in the size of the actual sun. But since the sun in the actual sun in the sky is maintaining size, that's why the angular size of the sun doesn't change, because.
Well, no, because if the light source got closer to you, I mean, obviously you're talking about flat Earth. Yeah, it doesn't work on flat Earth, but on concave Earth, and I suppose that the sun is going to be a certain distance away, but it doesn't explain a lunar eclipse and how the sun can literally cause the Earth to cast a shadow on an object. Like it just doesn't work.
If a light has in everyday reality.
And the Earth is rotating.
In everyday reality, well, hang on. In everyday reality, we see objects that are further away from you appear smaller than the same object closer to you. The same would be true for everything, whether it's a doggy, a car, a person, a tree. It doesn't matter what it is. Objects that are further away from you will have a smaller angular size. So the same should be true for the sun.
Things, but that's a different story. Okay.
The same should be true of the sun, because we just agreed that at noon, midday, the sun is at its closest to me, and during sunrise and sunset, the sun is at its furthest away from me, both on the flat Earth model and on the concave model. So what I should be seeing every single day is I should see the sun rise at one angular size, grow to maybe 3 to 4 times bigger midday, and then shrink again to the size it was when it initially rose. But I don't see that. When I take a picture of the sun, one picture every 30 minutes for an entire day, where it's clear outside, the angular size of the sun stays exactly the same throughout the day. This doesn't make sense on a flat Earth. This most definitely doesn't make sense on a concave Earth. So what I'm left with is the only model that makes sense.
But it also fails on the convex model for the same reason, because on the convex model, a rotating convex model, you have a rotating Earth, which means during daytime people are it's not the orbit of the sun. In the concave model, you have the sun moving, first of all. In the heliocentric model, the sunrise and sunset is caused by a rotating Earth. There's two different ballgames. But either way, the people on the rotating sphere are getting closer to the sun as they rotate it, so you would still be getting closer to it. So if the sun isn't changing size, well, that's because the sun isn't.
Yeah. Do you want to know why? It's because of scale, my friend. At people's closest approach to the sun, the angular size of the sun is going to be 0.53275338 degrees. During sunrise and sunset, the angular size of the sun would be 0.53277761 degrees. That is a difference of 0.00002272 degrees. Which means the difference is so slight, it would not be noticeable on the heliocentric model.
Okay. But why would it have to be so? But why would it have to be so noticeable on the concave model for the same reason?
Because on the concave model, the sun would not be 93 million miles away or 150 million kilometers away. On the concave model, the sun would be a hell of a lot closer. The same with the flat Earth model. On the flat Earth model, you're talking about a sun that's at a distance of 3,000 miles away. I've heard some people say maybe around 5,000 kilometers away, somewhere around there. That would mean that at that distance, and with the way that the sun is traveling, the sun should rise at one angular size, go to 3.2 times bigger midday, and then shrink again to the size it was when it rose. On the concave model, the values are relatively the same. So we should expect the same result with respect to the sun's angular size. But on the heliocentric model, the sun is not 3,000 miles away. It's 92, 93 million miles away. And so the angular size difference that you would get with a difference of around 6,000 kilometers is hardly anything. You're talking about a difference of literally 0.00002272 degrees.
Right. And
I
the
can
point I'm
give
going to
you a connection rate if you want.
the point I need to make right now is that you're comparing two completely different models and expecting to get the same. The distance, the distance in the heliocentric model, the distance between the sun and the Earth is all a void outer space vacuum. And so all of that would just be straight light and all that stuff. In the concave Earth model, the sky is a completely different thing. So you can't expect to apply things from one model and say, well, this should be the same thing on this model, because in this model, the sky and the heavens are a completely different thing. First of all, the original lights, the sun isn't the original light. The sun isn't the light source of the Earth in the concave Earth model.
It doesn't matter what the light source is. It's the light itself and the distance the light has to travel. The light has to travel in both models. Light has to travel in both models. In your model and in the flat Earth model, light does not have to travel as far as it does in the heliocentric model. That's the difference between the two. That's why we have two different values. Hang on. Let me just explain this simply. The why we have two different extremes is because we have two different extremes when it comes to distances. The distances in your model are roughly the same as the distances that plague the flat Earth model. We're talking about a distance of the sun of not millions of kilometers, but thousands of kilometers. And that is a problem when it comes to the angular size of the sun and how it does not change throughout the day.
But it's not thousands of kilometers of vacuum. It could be thousands of kilometers of water and other forms of water, other phases of water that we don't yet understand.
That's something that requires evidence for something like that.
And so that would drastically change your formulas if the distance between the Earth and the lights isn't a vacuum of outer space. What if it's actually water? Well, that's going to change all the measurements too, because now the water changes the speed of everything.
Not quite.
Water. And if there's other forms of water that we don't understand, there's a fourth and the fifth phase of water.
Well, now we're getting into now we're getting into magic. I don't know what else you want, because if you're going to present me a possibility that there's water with special properties that no one understands, then I'm just going to have to ask you for evidence that this water exists.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I don't have evidence that exists. Number one.
isn't that a problem,
But-
though? That goes back to my earlier statement. Isn't that a fucking problem? Because for your thing to work, there has to be this water or something, but there is no evidence of it. So, I mean, and Hitchens' razor would say, an idea presented without zero evidence can be dismissed with zero evidence. There is no evidence for what you're saying, but Reds and I can back up what we say with mountains of evidence. Granted, most of my evidence is things that Reds have done.
I definitely see water in between us and those stars. I definitely see what appears to be water and waves in those stars. But
You
that's
mean
neither here nor there.
you
What
mean the stars twinkle because the atmosphere isn't still? That's not water.
Well, you asked me to explain that observation in the concave off model, and so that's what I'm doing. I never said that I had proof there, but I'm explaining to you. I'm answering your question about how the light would work in the concave Earth model. That is the explanation. Do I have proof there's water up there? No. But there is a lot of evidence that suggests that there could be water up there, i.e., helmets getting filled with water and stuff like that.
That's not evidence of water in space. That is evidence of a leaky spacesuit from its cooling system.
Okay, well, whatever. That's fine. We don't have to argue about that. I would agree that NASA is doing stuff up in the sky, and I think it's possible. No, and I don't have any proof because it's almost a nightmare getting any proof from NASA.
Reds has filmed a shitload of stuff.
I suspect there is. Well, I agree with. Hey, they obviously are launching stuff up into the sky, and I do agree that there are satellites, and I do think it's possible that there is an ISS, and I don't necessarily think that everything they say about the ISS is true. I don't know if all the distances are correct. They might be, but I don't think that everything that NASA does is fake. I just know that they don't tell us the truth about everything they tell us, and that's two different things altogether. Because one opinion thinks that everything NASA does is a lie. They clearly are doing stuff up in space, and it's important that we.
Yeah, did you have any evidence that they're faking anything?
Well, because Reds does have a lot of quality footage of them launching stuff and landing stuff, and so at first I was very suspect of them landing rockets that they've launched back up into the sky, and thanks to Reds, I've seen strong evidence that they are launching stuff in the sky and landing those same objects. So thank you for that, Red. But that doesn't necessarily mean
it
that
goes
everything
back to the question of, do you have evidence that NASA are faking anything?
A lot, of course. Yeah, I don't believe the moon landing is true, and they may have landed on the moon, but I don't think that
then
what
the
they
moon
showed
landing
us
is true.
I'm sorry?
Have you got any evidence that it's not what they showed us?
Well,
you
I'm on
can
a cell
say you
phone, so I
believe
can't.
it, but there isn't any evidence.
Well, people can research NASA on their own. There's lots of reason to suspect that.
Yeah,
NASA
and when you no, and when you actually do the research and understand
waste
physics,
all time
nothing that
going down
NASA
that
have
rabbit
done is suspect. There is no evidence that NASA have ever faked anything.
Well, I'll just start with the moon landing. That'll be my number one. I don't think the images that they show us of the Earth are real.
You got any evidence?
Pretty easy.
Again, you just keep saying I don't think the moon landing was real. Do you have any evidence that the moon landing was fake? Because I guarantee you, any evidence you present me, I could debunk on the spot.
Look at the evidence. You can go to my channel. I have a playlist specifically for the moon landing.
Just give me one thing right now that shows the moon landing was fake. Because I'm telling you right now, I can debunk anything that you can say about the moon landing being fake.
Okay, the moon rover that they pulled out of the lunar module was too big to even get out the.
The moon rover was folded up and like in a compartment on the side. The schematics of the lunar landing module will show that it was no issue. So no, that's not evidence that the moon landings didn't happen.
All right, well, people can look at that on their own. Number two, when you look at when they left the moon, when they launched up off the moon, that clearly looked fake to me. You could tell that was just being hoisted up on a crane.
It looked fake can you tell me why it looked fake and what method you used to analyze it to determine it was fake?
Why was no when the lunar module landed? There was no evidence of any thrust. There was no evidence of any.
No. You said about when the module that went back to the lunar orbiter when it took off. You said that looks fake. Why did it look fake?
Thanks for the same. Well, they both look fake. Both the ascent and the descent both look fake because they both have an absence of appearance of any disruption to the surface, i.e. the dust or dirt.
Yeah, you see the bit that returned back to the lunar orbiter, detached from the main unit that landed, so it wouldn't have been blasting any dust around. And also, the lunar lander actually landed on pretty solid ground, not soft, dusty stuff like you would expect.
Gravity. When that lunar module was landing, there's got to be some upwards thrust, at least some upwards thrust, while the lunar module is coming down to land. There's got to be some upwards thrust to make sure they don't crash and die, right? So even though it's not that much because it's 1/6 gravity, but what I'm saying is those thrusters, if it's only 1/6 gravity, that means it's a weak force holding down dirt or soot or dust or whatever that is in the moon. And so it should have been easy to disrupt that. We'll call it soil. That soil should have been easily disruptible because of the weak gravitational force of the moon. And so we don't see any evidence that there was any disruption.
Again, the lunar lander actually landed on pretty solid ground that didn't have like loads of loose dust and stuff over it. So no evidence that it was fake.
That's not with the footage. When the rover is driving around, it shows that dust is very loose and light.
Yeah, the rover went on a different position to where the lunar lander dropped.
Turn the vehicle and pick up dust like a regular four-wheeler.
No. The rover went to different positions. It drove to different places. The lander actually landed on a rather solid part with not much dust or anything like that.
Well, it still kicked up
and
dust.
Also, there's a thing about dust on the moon is that... Wait, stop. Josh, one sec. There's a thing about dust on the moon, and due to the fact that the moon isn't protected by a magnetosphere the same way the Earth is, the particles on the moon actually get charged magnetically and actually stick to each other quite a lot, and to the surface and everything. So it's actually not as easy to blow dust up and stuff as it is, on Earth with dust just being as loose because of the charge that it picks up. It's all like stuck together and clumps together and stuck to the surface. It's just a nature of the dirt on the moon. Plus, like I said, when the lunar lander landed, it wasn't on an area of a lot of dust. But yes, when the rover got off and drove away, it went to where there was more dust.
So you're saying the lunar lander took off and landed in a place where there was no dust, but when they drove the rover, they went to a place where there was dust. That's what you're saying?
Pretty
Sent
much.
you something, Craig.
All right, just getting that up.
It's only 8 seconds
right.
long, but I think it's good enough.
All right, one sec.
See, I knew I found it before, but it took me a while to find, unfortunately. But now that I have it to you, you have the ability to play it, so there you fucking go.
Okay, right.
Hopefully.
So this is just briefly going back to the how did the rover fit, and this is how.
There you go.
I wish I still had them, but I did see the schematics before, and the rover just looked simply too big. The measurements, it's a shame I don't have them with me to back up my claim, so, I'll concede that, I don't have that right now. I'm holding a cell phone in my hand, so nothing I can do about that. But I remember seeing that, and I'm like, no, that doesn't work.
Well,
also,
here
on
it
the
is
bottom,
in slow motion, just so you can see.
On the bottom of the suit Neil Armstrong was wearing, they had a flat bottom on the boots of the spacesuit, and the
hang
marks,
on, just go. Hang on, before we get that far. Yeah, but before we get that far, I just want to point out something. This animation that you're showing shows the folding of the rover. It shows how it all fit with the lunar lander. It
right,
wouldn't fit if it
schematic,
was
all folded up. I saw the size of it all folded up, and it was still bigger than the door. And I
I'm
can't
showing
back
you
that
it
up.
here. This is the actual sizes, and it shows you that it fits.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
You
all right, well
that's what this animation is showing here,
It's one of
because
those things
when
called
you
evidence.
when you have it folded up, its footprint is a lot smaller, small enough to be carried along with the lunar lander. Blah 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 blah. The rest is history.
I don't even see how they had room for the 3 people and the total size, the interior size of the lunar. I mean, 3 guys plus that thing. It just check it out again.
There's
that's something we don't have to. Fucking go.
There's actually a video. There's actually a video by a guy by name of Astronomy Live, and they have a model of the lander, an actual lander that just never went to the moon, on display at Kennedy Space Center. Astronomy Live measured the opening and the habitation area using lasers. He has this entire thing on his channel, and guess what? They would have fit.
Okay, I'm gonna go check that out then.
And you said something about the boot print.
That I saw. That's a flat Earth claim that I saw. That if that's true, then that's a flat Earth claim that I saw that fooled me. So we can
Just
use
assume
that.
everything flat Earth say is wrong. All right, and that's a good.
That's a good piece of advice right there.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of advice. If a flat earther tells you something's right, immediately be suspicious.
Yeah, if a flat earther tells you red is red, it's probably green. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, since I've come to most of the flat earthers promoting the flat Earth are deceivers. There's a lot of genuine believers, but most of them are deceivers. So I'm with you guys on that.
they're all fucking idiots. But anyway, you said something about the boot of the astronaut. What was that you said?
Well, the boot on the bottom of the spacesuit didn't have these big, huge lines that would produce the footprint in the soil of the moon that we saw when when mankind
right. So
finally set foot on the.
You see the animation that we're showing?
Yes.
Yeah. In the animation, what have they got on their feet?
Them look like boots.
It looks like they're wearing sandals or something.
Yeah, they've got like outers that go on top of the spacesuit boots.
Correct.
This was mainly to minimize the amount of dust coming in and out of the capsule because they were highly allergic to it. But yeah, the spacesuit boot itself didn't have a tread on, but that outer that they put on did have a tread on.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So I'll check that out. Thank you.
Wow, that was easy again. I'm not used to people going, oh, right, that sounds sensible. I'll check that out.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Someone said that something. Wait a minute, Craig. Are you saying?
No room to say it's wrong or right, but I'm going to check it out. Too.
Craig, are you saying something was agreed to being sensible? Something that we said?
I know, right? It's weird.
Hang on. This is. I'm not used to this shit. Hang on. Okay. We got. Hey guys, we finally did it. Fucking celebrate.
Yeah.
Red's life is now complete.
Celebration over. Okay.
Did that party adhere to social distancing rules?
It was all over the internet.
But right,
guys,
yes.
I got a question about the outer fingerprint. What does it call it? What you put on the shoes?
Sorry, say again. The outer.
You said the astronaut has a like a fingerprint on the right, like something on the shoes, which we've trained on it.
Yeah, the outers that they put on.
There you go. Craig, the link
cool.
I sent you.
I was just
You're
looking
welcome.
for.
All right.
I was just looking for.
It shows the boots without, and it shows the boots with. You'll have to scroll down halfway on the page.
Right. Yeah. So
Right.
here is
How does it call?
Here is the outer like normal. Sorry, the boot like normal, and this is the outer that they put on, and you see it's got the tread on the bottom.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, my question is, when did they put the outer on?
Before they got out of the
When-
capsule?
Hmm.
So inside the capsule.
Yeah, they probably don't put them on while they've got to run in the gas pedal and the brake pedal, so they
No.
probably put them on just before. Oh,
But you cannot put it on with the suit. You're not able to put this on in the capsule.
What?
You have to somebody else have to put it for you.
I couldn't do it himself. There's 3 of them in there, so the other guys could put on
Yeah.
the 2 boots, and then
The
I'll
astronauts are
take
pretty
turns.
practiced at kind of putting on gear.
No, but somebody, it must be somebody without the suit.
Yeah,
With
well,
the gloves,
inside the capsule, it's pressurized. There's an atmosphere.
And there's also 2 of them, so if they're like, hey, can you get this strap that's on my back here? They'd be like, oh, sure, bro, I'll help you out. Because, there's 2 of them.
Yeah, see, my
Yeah, but
goal
the
here
most-
is to. I still don't believe they landed on the moon, but there's so many flat Earth claims
That are all
of the
wrong.
moon debunk that I've read that are wrong. And so, while I do agree that the moon landing is a hoax, it was filmed, I don't think that all the claims debunked for the moon landing are correct. In fact, I know some of them are outright lies, like we just exposed right there. So,
It's not hard to debunk these claims, but
you might consider me an enemy, but I'm still the enemy of your enemy. So
Yeah.
whatever.
well, we can all agree flat earthers are fucking dumb. But if you guys need to start accepting evidence and asking yourselves, why isn't there any evidence for what I say to be true? And that's my whole point of this entire thing today has been, I have the evidence and you don't. I have physical measurements of the Earth's curvature by surveyors in recent times and throughout history. And they all say the same thing. The shape of the Earth is an oblate spheroid with a radius of about 4,000 miles.
We saw them faking a photo of the Earth from the moon, just using a circular window from the lunar
No,
module.
you didn't. That's been debunked. Gem Panda did an entire thing debunking a funny thing
Okay,
happened
so,
on the way to
like,
the
so
moon.
how
So
do
just check that out.
Gem Panda.
Yeah.
All right, maybe you can link me that, off air after.
But no, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon has been debunked for a couple of decades. So
My
know
favorite
that
part...
some of the claims are debunked. I know that, but I don't think
part of
all of
that entire... Hang on. My favorite part during that entire debacle was when Buzz decided to sock him right in the jaw.
you know what? If I could pay towards his legal fund, I'd pay twice so he could do it
Oh.
again.
It's funny you brought him up. Why did he? All right. I'm not saying
if you
this
say
is-
what you're about to say, I'm gonna cry myself to sleep tonight. Please do not do not say that Buzz Aldrin said we never went to the moon. Please don't say that. It lowers
Why?
my faith in humanity because he didn't say
But
that.
he said it to a little girl. He said it didn't happen.
Did
He
you
did
listen to
not
the entire
say that.
conversation? He was talking about going
I heard-
back to the moon because it hasn't happened. It didn't happen. They didn't go back to the moon. But he spent the entire interview, the entire chat with her before that, talking about going to the moon. But then she's asking the question, why didn't you go back? And he's like, well, that's a good question, and that's my question. And because it didn't happen, we haven't gone back. That's what he's talking about. Buzz Aldrin went to the fucking moon, and if you tell him that he didn't go to the moon, he will punch you in the face.
So Buzz Aldrin himself wants to know why they didn't go back. Doesn't
Yes.
he know why?
Well, yeah, well, he knows it's to do
Yeah,
with money.
we do know why.
Why did he have
We do know why, because at the time that the moon landings were occurring, we were kind of having a dick measuring contest with the Russians. A dick measuring contest, by the way, that we were losing.
Yeah,
And so,
Sputnik won.
because we were... Yeah, exactly. And, fucking like a...
Why did they work
that kind of-
together on
anyway.
Operation Fishbowl? Why did the Russians and the United States work together on it?
Oh, for fuck's
Right,
sake. Listen, we were
let's
having a
ignore
dick
that
measuring
and
contest.
Move on to what we were just talking about.
We were having a
Well,
dick measuring contest with the Russians, and because the U.S. was having their fifis hurt, we wanted to win in something, so they're like, okay, we're going to spend a shit ton of money on getting to the moon. And I'm talking about a fuck ton. So listen, NASA, I'm writing you this check, and you better go to the moon. And if your mission doesn't kick ass, I'm going to have your testicles.
And it was
So,
basically an
they
open-ended
had-
check.
They had some serious fire lit under some serious ass to get their asses to the moon. There isn't that type of willpower nowadays.
And once the the race to the moon was won, and there was other things happening in the world, tensions between the US and the USSR were souring. The public and the economic interest in going back to the moon constantly had waned. That meant that Congress lowered NASA's budget. So NASA concluded at that point the best thing for them to do was to start researching the long-term effects on the human body in space and developing the International Space Station. And for the past 20 years, they've been in the International Space Station researching what long-term effects of space travel will do to the human body, so that we can do things like have longer missions to Mars and even some of the moons of Saturn possibly in the next couple of 100 years to colonize, you know?
And the process of making big breakthroughs on cancer, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's research.
Yeah, there's so much that NASA have helped develop that we don't even realize. Like the screen on your mobile phone, that exists because of technologies that were spearheaded by NASA. Your typical motor on a dustbuster Hoover thing, right? That came along because NASA developed small, efficient motors, and that helped the technology progress where you could use it on Hoovers and have small, efficient motors that you could hold in your hand, because NASA spearheaded that technology.
There's a lot of
for instance, you know.
There's a lot of technologies that are spun off from this type of progression that NASA was spearheading. But the main fact is this, going back to the original question, the reason why we haven't gone back to the moon is because there just isn't the same type of willpower that there was back in the 60s. You know, back in the 60s, we're like, oh, the Russians, you know, fucking communists, let's beat them, commie bastards. They're going to embarrass us again because, you know, they've been doing it so far. We need to beat them to the moon to show that we're the best, America. And then so after we landed on the moon, that we accomplished our goal. It has already been done. Why continue to do that? So after they came back, we changed our national anthem to America, fuck yeah, and the rest is history.
America.
Guys, I got
the motherfucking thing.
About the moon.
Okay.
Go on.
Trips. All right. So it's about the lunar module of Apollo 11. So how many engines does it have for landing?
It has a main engine, but it also has a whole bunch of directional thrusters all around them. So if you want to consider those engines, it has multiple. But the main landing engine, then it has one.
Okay, so one main engine. What control?
No, it has one it has one landing engine. One landing engine.
Right, one landing engine. Right, throwing gases downward in order to reduce velocity, right? So how many controls they have on this engine? I mean, first he can stop it, he can turn it on, he can I mean the thrust make it bigger, make it smaller.
Yeah, they probably had a joystick and a yaw pitch and a yaw and a roll stick. I mean,
the engine was also able to gimbal along with the RCS directional thrusters that were on the craft itself. So you had multiple ways that you could control the craft.
Neil Armstrong was actually a really good pilot because he had to, they actually had a lot of problems. I've seen a lot of the footage from when they were testing that, near the Earth's surface anyway, those lunar modules. And, rest in peace, Gus Grissom. I just want to say that. Because, him and his crew, that was really unfortunate. So, God bless him and his family. But it seems that they had a lot of trouble, at least in Earth's atmosphere, with getting that thing stable and landing it and keeping it. Now, of course, that's a different it's completely different because the moon has 1/6 gravity. So
Yeah, I mean that's why we test things, right? That's why Red's filmed one of the most awesome things I've ever seen of SpaceX doing a live abort. You know, that's why they test things, is so that they can get it right.
You saw my abort footage? Yeah, that was pretty badass.
It was one of the best ones you've done. I love it.
Oh fuck yeah, I love that shot. But yes, to answer your question, they have.
Craig, when you were touching on the wonderful things that NASA's done for us, I want to point out that a lot of that had absolutely nothing to do with America, because NASA is really just a formation from all the German scientists that came over here after the Holocaust and paperclip and all that stuff.
No,
so it's really,
they hired some German scientists that were already ready to defect. It doesn't mean that NASA... No, wait, stop. Right. NASA wasn't founded by a bunch of... No, I know, but NASA... Let me get it straight. NASA wasn't founded by a bunch of Nazis. NASA was actually a continuation of the National Aeronautics, something I can't remember the name of it now, but it's always been a federal agency. Yes, they did hire some of the German scientists after the fall of the Third Reich, but these were people that were ready to be defectors and stuff anyway, and it doesn't mean that NASA was founded by Nazis.
No, it was comprised of Nazis.
Not completely, and not of Nazis. They weren't Nazis at that time. The Third Reich had fallen. Sorry, Red
was talking about the last of how the United States and the Russians were in this dick measuring contest. And the point I'm trying to make is that it wasn't even America that started launching stuff into the sky with NASA. Whether they're lying or not, the point I want to make is that NASA was basically German, not American.
No, it really wasn't.
Well, hang on. My point is, I don't care. No, the point is, I don't care. I don't care whether America's purpose for going into space was genuine or not. I don't care if it was composed or comprised of a bunch of Nazis. I don't care. The point is that they actually completed the goal of landing on the moon. That's the whole point, okay? We can go ahead and say that, oh, these people working on these rockets were meanie-head poopy pantses. We can say that they were terrible people, but they knew their shit. Let's go ahead and say I am... Let's say I am... Hang on. Let's say I am an evil monster and I eat puppies alive. Exactly. Let's say I'm an evil monster that eats puppies alive, and I say 2 + 2 = 4. Then we have Craig over here who takes care of kittens and helps the needy and that kind of shit, and he says 2 + 2 = 3. Is he right because he's a good person? Am I wrong because I'm an asshole?
Listen, what I was saying wasn't to prove whether or not they landed on the moon. My point was just in regards to what you were saying about the history and the politics of it. So I wasn't pointing out that there were a bunch of German Nazis, which means that they couldn't have landed on the moon. I wasn't making that connection. Because
just in case anyone was, now you know. I really don't care.
Yeah, but to say that NASA was completely comprised of Nazis is...
Why they would lie.
Wait. To say that NASA is completely composed of Nazis is just factually wrong, though, because, well, A, there weren't any Nazis left. All the Nazis were gone. We beat them. And after the Nazi defeat, German engineers were moved to the United States and the USSR, where they further developed the V-2 rocket for military and civilian purposes. But I'm not
wrong, because there were lots of German scientists that came over. And
but it wasn't completely comprised of German scientists. There were some German scientists.
But I didn't say it was completely. I'm just saying there was a lot, including the top, Werner von Braun.
126 of the principal designers were apparently from Germany. And also Werner. What about Werner von Braun? What does it matter? What about him?
Well, the fact that they were German Nazi scientists doesn't prove whether or not they landed on the moon.
But stop saying they were Nazis, because they weren't Nazis. The Nazis didn't exist at that
they
point.
were or weren't. Let's just go ahead and cut the shit and say that there were Satanists. Okay, there you go. Are we happy now? I think we can all agree they were. They were Satanists. We can move on from here.
Yeah.
Whether or not they were Nazis has nothing to do with it. The point is that is that Reg was saying this was between America and the Russians. And the only reason I bring up the Germans at all, we can leave Nazis right out of it. The fact that Nazis are not Nazis, that's completely irrelevant. My point is that the Germans had a lot to do with this as well. They're a third.
Yeah,
a third entity on the table. Is all. I'm trying to say that it's not just between.
Yeah, and America decided to gloss over that fact. I mean, that's
what
literally
does.
all it is. It's what America does. America is kind of known for being like, oh yeah, America won the Stanley Cup finally. We beat the Canadians. Our team is full of Canadians, but we're just going to ignore that fact.
When you watch a movie about the Second World War, do you see how the plucky European troops fought down to their last man? Or do you see the part where the Americans rode in on silver unicorns and fired lasers and killed all the Nazis?
Dude, the way we got our independence back in 1776. The way we got our independence back in 1776 is because we have the F-22 Raptor.
Yeah.
Eat shit, British.
Yeah, and you just decided you didn't like tea or something.
Actually, because of
fuck your tea.
1775.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother matter.
By the way, I spoke to the Queen and she said you're not allowed to have your independence. You voted Donald Trump.
Okay, so anyway, let me go back to this. Let me go back to the main point here, because Mr. I Got Questions over here was asking. It was a different time. The reason why we invested so much money into it was because that was simply the motivation was there for the United States to put forth the money it would cost to develop and succeed with the moon landing program. That it was just a different time. That type of willpower doesn't exactly exist nowadays. So when we're developing the Artemis program, we're going to need partners in order to make this happen, which is why you're seeing ESA get involved. And you're seeing CSA, the Canadian Space Agency, getting involved. JAXA is getting involved. This isn't a American endeavor anymore. This is an endeavor for a whole bunch of countries working together for the Artemis program. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an Artemis program.
Although it does need to tell the Canadians that maple syrup and mousses don't really help the space program.
They'll probably tell you to shut your whore mouth, but
the fact remains is they say shut your whore mouth, sorry.
Something like that. But anyway, the motivation was there back in the day. The motivation isn't there now. But it's still a good place to go to. There's a lot of science that can be done on the moon. Not only that, if you make a base on the moon, you can get to other locations in space much easier than you would be from launching from the Earth. So Buzz Aldrin was saying, why haven't we gone back? Because there is such a good opportunity here that if people just got their heads out of their asses long enough to see the potential here, we would be there already. So why haven't people gotten their heads out of their asses? That's the question that he was asking. Why haven't our politicians, why haven't the people in charge who write the funding for NASA, why have they not seen the potential that exists with the moon?
Because if Buzz was in charge, you can guarantee we would have been back to the moon.
We would be on Mars by now.
Yeah. Fuck's sake.
So
he'd be President Buzz of the Mars Empire.
Yeah, exactly. So the only reason why there seems to be this willpower to get to the moon is because now we have international partners helping us. And they're going to make the bill for this a lot cheaper than what it was during the Apollo program. So to answer your question, that's why Buzz was asking the questions he was asking. That's why we haven't been back to the moons until now. We're just starting to develop the infrastructure needed to go back to the moon. And this is why we will see a landing in the future, because we are developing that infrastructure thanks to our international partners.
And what NASA intend to do is by the time they get to the moon, be it 2024 or a couple of years later, by the time they get there, everything they need to set up habitation, do experiments, and carry on building base and start refining fuel will be put there already by those partners, by SpaceX, by Blue Origin, by orbital mechanics. All the stuff they need to set up a base on the moon will be there by the time they get to the South Pole.
Orbital mechanics, yes, but the company you're thinking of is Orbital ATK.
Yeah, Orbital ATK, sorry.
But yes, all of these companies and all of these international partners are going to come together to make this Artemis program a reality. So I hope that it's going to be fucking epic, and I plan to be there to film it while it's happening. So I hope. That's why I'm a patron. I hope. Exactly. I hope that answers your question, Mr. I Have Questions. I hope you have one less question now.
But anyway,
I'll take your silence as a yes.
It was a question for me?
No, it was.
No, that was the question that you were asking.
Answer your questions. But I think it's about time to start wrapping up for tonight. And what I want to say to you guys as a final thought is that both of you try and go and find some evidence for what you believe. If you think the Earth is concave or possibly flat, go and actually look for evidence that can only be explained if the Earth is the way that you say it is. And you will find there isn't any. But if you look for evidence of the Earth being as according to the heliocentric model, there is tons. It is everywhere. Okay?
I think the time will give us evidence of the concave Earth.
I mean, I'd love to see some, but just like flat Earth, there hasn't been any up till now.
I do have a evidence playlist at my channel. You're welcome to check it out, and it's an extensive playlist. It's going to be over 50, 60 hours, so it's a lot of.
And all of it can be answered with our knowledge of refraction.
Wait a second. Can I ask a question? Do you by any chance know of a person who goes by the name of Lord Stephen Christ?
I've never spoken with him personally. I've never actually met him, no.
Okay, what are your feelings about him? What's your opinion of him? And does your playlist contain any of his videos?
Can I tell you my opinion of him? He's batshit fucking crazy.
Well, yeah, but I'm asking the guy. So does your playlist contain any of his videos? And besides that, what do you think of him?
My playlist does contain some of his material, to answer that question. What do I think of him? Well, short of knowing him personally, I think he's a bright guy. I think he's done a lot of hard work, whether he's right or wrong. I recognize, I've studied a lot of his material, especially before his channel got taken down a year or two ago, and I've seen a lot of the extreme claims he's made. I don't agree with a lot of them, and I'm glad to see that other people have recovered from believing those things that I never believed, and so I'm happy to see some progress there. And so I do know that he suffered a car accident and he hurt his head pretty bad, and so I hope he's okay. I don't know where he's at, but there may be
in a mental institution
there where, I can understand why people might think he's crazy, but I also understand where he's coming from a certain.
He thinks he's Jesus. Too, so. He literally thinks he's Jesus, though. That's not a joke. He thinks he's God.
I know.
We all know that I'm God.
Really, yeah. I understand what's going on there. There's a certain paradigm that some people think through, and I understand this thought paradigm, even though I don't necessarily share it. I'm just explaining a thought paradigm that other people have, so bear with me. There is a thought paradigm where some people believe that we are all basically part of one consciousness. So in essence, everybody would be Jesus Christ. So it's a paradoxical thing. I'm not going to get into it here and now. But I understand why he thinks what he thinks, and whether he's crazy or not.
My brain. Lord, the reason why,
and he claims to be the God, and he claims to be Satan too. He says it's paradoxical, and so I understand
because God is all things in his world, but there's a reason why I ask. But there's a reason why I ask if you have any of his videos in your playlist. The reason why I'm asking that is I'm trying to see what is the level, or what is the quality, I should say, of evidence that you are presenting. I have argued directly with Lord Stephen Christ before he got taken to the Happy House. I argued with Lord Stephen Christ back in 2016, I believe, before he was taken to the Happy House. If that's the quality of evidence that you are putting in your playlist, then I'm just going to say I'll still look at it, but I don't have high hopes.
Right. And well, one thing I want to say is I don't believe his model to be 100% accurate. And I don't believe that everything he claims is true. Because of course, I'm my own person. And I don't, just because I share some of his material doesn't mean I necessarily believe everything he claims or everything he does. So that should just be a blanket statement. But I just want to remind people, just try not to pigeonhole me, you know? But so yeah, I will concede that everybody's human. Everybody's going to be wrong about some stuff. So, but I think that there's a lot of things that he presents. Whether he's right or wrong, it raises some really good questions, and I do think he is right about a lot of that.
Can I just point out that I very much agree with NA in the chat. I do not consent to have Jesus inside of me. That is not okay. That is not something, especially at these times of social distancing, it's not something I'm comfortable with, guys. Okay? So
okay, can we go ahead and end it on that note? Let's just end it on that note. Let's end it on that note.
Yeah, I'm going to go through the super chats. There's been quite a few tonight, so I'm just going to quickly do that. I just want to say, guys, your support means the absolute world to me. I've been really ill the past week and a bit. So I've struggled to actually do anything, and knowing that you guys support me the way that you do allows me to keep doing this even when I have to take time off because I'm sick. And if you are unable to support me financially, the best way that you can help my channel is by sharing it in all the social media and stuff. And also make sure you guys definitely check out Red's Rhetoric, because he killed the flat earth before I even got here. Raven Zero for $2 says the flat earths are wasting your oxygen. What a waste. JL Warren for $4.99 says, did you know Lucifer, in the colloquial form you're referencing, came about centuries after the proposed heliocentric model? Yes, but flat earthers don't understand anything. Dan Robinson for £6.66, hail Sagan. Psi-fricking-tation needed, hail Sagan, stay safe people. Yeah, evidence, they don't have it. Crafty Keela for €2 says, Red's just made my night by coming into this conversation. Red, you got a fan.
Oh boy, thanks for having such low standards.
And Mark Swaby became a new member. Welcome to the club. You can now use the awesome emoji of Nathan Thompson in jail. Rennie Baby for $5 says, does he know how a vacuum works before he sweeps the floor? I can tell you, no, he does not know how a vacuum works. Raven Zero for $2 says, Reds is FTFE's BFG 9000 to aim towards the flat earths. Yeah? You are my most powerful weapon, Reds. How does that feel?
I feel used.
Yes, so you should. Area 85 Restorations for $5 says, FTFE Reds, go to Google and type IOP Science Extravehicular Spacesuit Bearing Technology Development Research. 3 minutes on Google, people. Yeah. I'm assuming that answers the question of how you can have articulating parts and a pressurized suit.
Yeah, the rotor joints.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rotor joints.
Cheers, Area 85 Restoration, with the facts that destroy nonsense. John Rapp, everyone say hi to John Rapp in the most appropriate way. With $2 says, gravity must be a pushy force in the concave Earth. It's just magic. Stringer News 1 for $2 says, John Rapp, it's called gravity for a reason. John Rapp for another $2 says, in concave Earth, the horizon always lowers to eye level. Yes, but then refraction, they don't get that. The plot hole for $2. Plot hole's trying to arrange a debate between me and team and some guys. That's going to be fun. Missed these debates. Cheers. No worries. They're never going to stop. Trust me. Rangerman944 for $2 says, word salad, yummy. I like it with some dressing and nonsense. John Rapp for $2 says, Stringer News 1. That explains it. Good on you, mate. Reds, can I get a good on you, mate?
No. I already feel used.
JL Warren for $4.99 says, this all goes back to God. Science is not trying to disprove God, and it's not science's fault that the more we understand, God keeps failing to show up. I know. I'll believe in God, like straight out believe in God, when he turns up on my doorstep. Apart from that, it's going to be hard to convince me. String of News 1 for another $2 says John Rapp, smiley face emoji. Joshua Alarcon for £2 says the problem is he has no proof. None of my opponents ever do. And Junk Shop Library for $3.33 says remedial classroom approaching maximum occupancy. The remedial classroom is
Jesus.
the remedial classroom.
Wait a minute. You said Jesus showing up at your door? Oh,
No,
boy,
God.
that'd be.
I want actual
God?
God to show up at my door.
How would that work?
I don't know.
I mean, it's gonna be like. I mean, he's just gonna knock on a door and be like, "Hey, I just took a slight vacation. So what's up? Oh, some fuckface ate a bat and now I'm unemployed."
Yeah, just a massive hand coming out of the clouds, knocking on my door would be perfect. That's all I need.
No, okay, I guess.
Yeah, or Alanis Morissette. Apparently, that's God as well. In fact, you know what, Alanis Morissette, please come to my house. I do not mind. No, wait, social distancing. Can you come to my garden but stay 2 meters away? Luis Romero, also a new member. Welcome, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Rangerman9404 for $5 says the last debate I watched made my smart TV dumb. Now it's not only dumb, it's riding the short bus and kicking the windows.
That's
Crafty
funny.
Keela for €2 says hit like if you think FTFE and Reds are awesome. I better hit like because I think I'm awesome. Reds, I mean, he's alright, you know.
Go fuck yourself.
Jessica G, also a new member. Thank you very much. Manhattan QC, $2 with no message. String of News 1 for $10 says, for your tequila fund, FTFE. Yeah, I've run out of tequila since my wife discovered Batanga, which is apparently tequila, Coke, ice, lime, and salt on the rim. She's drinking a lot of it, and we're in the house all the time. Fun. Andrea Zeldich for 20 secs, all the secs. At sunset, does the top or bottom disappear first? I hope you're talking about the sun, because demonetized. Justin Phillip for 50 Nokias. Is it safe to look at reds with a thermal camera? No, that actually causes the world to end, just instantly, I've heard. Is that right, Reds?
Let's put it this way. Actually, never mind. You'll get demonetized.
Yeah.
Continue.
Trust me, guys, I've seen his face. I didn't always wear glasses.
You need your refill of the Clorox eye drops?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I'll send that to you.
John Rapp for $2, $2 Australian dollars, says, everyone who's anyone in the chat, you all rock. Yes, you all do. Thank you very much. I love you all. Also, I got a donation through PayPal from Nuga. Thank you very much, dude. I did message you earlier in the chat and say thank you for that. I know you couldn't do it through Super Chat. But anyway, they take 33%. So thank you. I do appreciate that, Nuga. You are amazing. John Rapp for another $2 Australian dollars, pulling at straws out his butt through his hat. $6.66 from NANA, Hail Satan. Hail Satan indeed. Crafty Keeler for €5. Thank the universe for Red's Rhetoric. Make sure you click like, folks. FTFE, thank you for what you do, mate. Stay safe and give the best to a Team Skeptic. Another fan there, Reds. Obviously hasn't met you.
Yay!
But Reds, Team Skeptic, sorry, is poorly. He's trying to recover. I've been in contact with him. He'll be back in a few days, hopefully. But I'll tell him you will send your love. Basic Bro for $2. What's evidence? They don't know. Robert Williams for $4.99 says the US also could build a battleship today. Imagine going to Bethlehem Steel and saying you need a 12-inch thick sheet of case-hardened Class A armor. No, I don't want to. John Rapp for $2 Australian dollars says end the bacon war, eat a cow. No, bacon's too nice. And then we've got one more member come in, Alto Eager. Thank you very much, guys. That was fun, Reds. Thank you for joining.
Yep, not a problem. Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
And both of you guys on the Concave, thank you very much. I got questions. I do appreciate you joining again.
Greg, I want to express my opinion about Steven.
Go on then. Yep, feel free.
So I didn't like his narcissism issues, but what I think he was and he is the greatest scientist on astronomy and cosmology. That's my opinion.
I thought my standards were low.
Okay.
I got his content on my channel, so
frankly,
I think
I'm glad opinions don't mean much. But
I
anyway,
think it's high-level scientist content.
Josh, thank you for joining again. Always a pleasure. Dealing with you guys is nicer than dealing with a lot of flat earthers. Tomorrow, however, we've got Special Agent Victor Kroot coming back on to disprove gravity. And get this, Reds. Here's Victor's argument, right? The big G in Newton's universal law of gravitation cannot stand for gravity because it stands for Gibbs free energy.
Okay, then.
It's taken by another equation, so therefore you can't, and that apparently disproves gravity.
Neato burrito.
Yeah, I know, right? So make sure you guys come back tomorrow for that. That's going to be absolutely epic. But yeah, Reds, Joshua, I got questions. Thank you very much for joining. I do appreciate the decent conversation. And thank you guys in the chat for having a nice time tonight. And thank you everyone who can super chat and donate and help support my fighting of stupidity. Make sure you guys go and check out Red's Rhetoric and subscribe to him. He has filmed some of the most amazing rocket launches you will ever see. Also, I Got Questions and Zenith Atlas both have channels that you can check out as well. I'll be back, like I said, tomorrow with another debate, and then a couple of days after that with a new video featuring Planet Walk. But remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. 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 Fight the flat.
The crane.